Chapter 1636. Although the matter of choosing the successor of the heavenly crane constellation Sacred Cloth was not publicized, there was no such thing as an absolute secret. Even Big Sister Suya was able to find out about it in advance and plan early on. Lamias naturally did not believe that there were no similar people. In any case, he had at least gotten Satyr's recommendation. In order to express her gratitude, before the day of departure, Lamias excitedly sent Satyr off. She released the Nimitz beast that night and gave it 3 portions of energy herbs for free. Perhaps because he knew that Lamias might not return in the future. Nimitz exhausted all his energy that night, hoping that he could succeed in one strike. Lamias did not know whether he could succeed or not, but she knew the scientific point of view of the first 4 and the last 5. However, she did not kindly remind him. Looking at Satyr, who was sleeping soundly with a pale face, Lamias thought for a while and directly took the purple crystal from Satyr's body. Just take it as your so-called support. It was better than nothing. On the day of departure, only Nimitz who knew about it came to send them off. As for Satyr, he did not appear. It was said that the Pegasus camp had a mission at the last minute. The amount of sleeping medicine used on Satyr yesterday was a little too much. It was unknown if he could wake up in time. Do you have any relatives or friends in the sacred domain? Lamias looked at Nimitz and asked. No. Nimitz shook his head. How could someone like me have relatives in the sacred domain? Why do you ask? Lamias shook her head and laughed in her heart. According to the storyline, she should be able to receive a side mission from Nimitz? Nimitz could be the illegitimate daughter of some big shot and had a very strong talent. With just one chance, she could turn an ugly duckling into a crane or something. You have to be careful on the way. Nimitz stuffed a small package into Lamias's hand. There is some food in here. Take care of yourself on the way. Nimitz's rations X1 get. All right. Lamias put away the package and glanced at the reluctant Nimitz. Was this guy sad that he wouldn't have the chance to sleep with Satyr after she left? Lamias always felt that her thoughts seemed to be a little dark. Rami, whether you succeed or not, remember to come back. Nimitz's eyes were red. I think I might not have won the bid last night. Lamias was silent for a moment. In the end, she shook her head and walked towards the group that was heading towards the holy region. Holding her handkerchief, Nimitz sent them off with tears in her eyes. It wasn't until the group finally disappeared that she sighed dejectedly and opened the item in her hand that was wrapped in cloth. These were the things that Lamias gave her before she left, saying that they were some souvenirs. Opening the package, there was a piece of animal skin inside. Nimitz read the contents of the animal skin with some surprise. Holy Garment Communication Meditation Training Technique. The group that was heading towards the holy region was obviously not the only group that she was currently in. It was just that the journey had just begun and they hadn't met up yet. However, the group was basically made up of people that came from Lamias's original camp. There weren't many of them, only about 30 people. Most of them were women. However, Lamias only saw one familiar person in the group. Sister Suya. Suya, who was rather travel-worn, was also surprised to see Lamias, who appeared in the group at the end. She even went directly to Lamias. I really didn't expect to meet you here, Sister Suya said in surprise. I originally thought that you would only team up with people like Nimitz. Now it seems that I still underestimated you. You're alone? Lamias asked expressionlessly. Sister Suya shrugged. You know how precious it is to be a candidate for the holy garment. We're different from those people with power and background. A spot for us is already a luxury. So, those sisters who are very close to you inevitably became the victims of this luxury. Lamias didn't expose it, and there was no need to do so now. She even smiled. Congratulations, you've succeeded. You too. Sister Suya narrowed her eyes. So, your spot was indeed given by Sir Satyr. I know that you two are often together. Lamias didn't comment. The group of candidates in front were now gathered in twos and threes, as if discussing something. They didn't get along well with each other. After arriving at the holy region, everyone was a competitor. "How about we form an alliance?" Sister Suya suddenly suggested. "Let me think about it." Lamias retreated in order to advance. What a joke! Before forming an alliance, what conditions were there to discuss? "I have some information about this competition." Sister Suya lowered her voice and said, "But I need people who can help me all the way to the end to make this information valuable. We'll share the information and determine the winner in the end." Lamias didn't hesitate. "Deal." Sister Suya was obviously more straightforward. After that, Sister Suya began to win over the rest of the female warriors in the team. Lamias looked at the thing that Sister Suya gave her before leaving and couldn't help but fall into deep thought. The thing that Sister Suya gave her was obviously a holy garment communication meditation training technique. But it was less than a third of the content. "As long as I follow you all the way, I'll be continuously given the content at the back?" Lamias shook her head. If she hadn't obtained the meditation training technique from Saturn in advance, she probably would have seriously cooperated with Suya. It's a pity that Suya must have already started the training and her progress may be much faster than mine. Lamias looked at the female warriors, who were gradually convinced by Sister Suya's persuasion, and shook her head again. These female warriors would probably never be able to catch up with Sister Suya's progress. But why does Sister Suya also have the meditation training technique? Holy Realm, 12 Palaces. The sacred ceremony was spread out and the stairs on Mount Pantheon fell from the sky. The goddess with a scepter in her hand walked down the stairs. Those in the Holy Realm who sensed it all knelt on the ground and shouted the goddess name, Athena. At the same time, the 12 palaces surrounding the goddess temple shot out a golden light. The 12 golden saints, which represented the most powerful combat power of the holy Sayas, gathered in the center of the goddess temple. The goddess was wearing a white robe. As she walked down the last step of the stairs, she restrained the divine light on her body and looked like a flawless girl in the human world, lovely and moving. But anyone could feel the great divine power hidden in this girl. The goddess' gaze wasn't gentle, it was even filled with a sense of killing. Don't forget that other than the goddess of wisdom, she was also in charge of war. She was the goddess of war. The authority of war seemed to have increased in the goddess body because of the fall of the god of war, Ares. Compared to the last time, the goddess's majesty was even stronger. This was what the 12 gold saints were thinking at this moment. Even more so, because of the goddess' increase in the authority of war, as the 12 most loyal holy Sayas of the goddess, their strength also increased to different degrees. "Wait!" The goddess' voice sounded, "Mu-Sha, follow me." Among the kneeling golden saints, a long-haired man slowly stood up. The rest of the holy Sayas didn't look up. They were still kneeling in the same place like statues. As for Mu-Sha, he was a Virgo holy Sayas. At this time, in the goddess temple, in the passage between the two huge stone pillars, the goddess walked forward unhurriedly while Mu-Sha followed behind. Mu-Sha couldn't see the goddess' face and didn't know if the goddess was angry at this time, so he could only remain silent. "How is the selection of the successor of the heavenly crane's sacred garment going?" the goddess suddenly asked, but she didn't stop. "The reserve female warriors are already on the way to the sacred region." Mu-Sha thought for a while and said, "According to the schedule, they should all be able to arrive before the end of the 5th day. The number of reserves this time seems to be quite high. Other than the children nurtured by the sacred region, there are some sent from all over." The goddess didn't stop, and her voice didn't fluctuate. "Do you think that the succession of the Cygnus constellation this time shouldn't be so loud?" Mu-Sha shook his head and said, "This is the goddess oracle. Naturally, everything has been considered." The goddess suddenly stopped. The path had come to an end. She looked up at the throne in the depths of the temple and said coldly, Poseidon has dissolved the alliance with the Mount of Gods. What? Even Musha, who was the chief of the 12 holy Sayas, couldn't help but be shocked. He suddenly looked up and thought quickly, the Sea King, why is it so sudden? Could it be because of the underworld? He didn't say. The goddess shook her head. He just let the army return to the Golden Ocean. As for the sea warriors, they haven't withdrawn yet. But thinking about it, it won't take too long. The news hasn't spread to the human countries yet. For now. Musha frowned and said, once the Sea King's army is withdrawn, I'm afraid that the results we have obtained with great difficulty on the battlefield of the gods, the war in the human world has dragged on for too long. The goddess suddenly said, the Mount of Gods hopes that I can end the war in the human world as soon as possible, and then withdraw the power that has been placed in the human world. The news of the underworld being seriously injured is true. There are rumors that the underworld will be inherited by the young master of the underworld, Prince Pulin. Father God speculates that the underworld may directly transfer his position. The news came in waves, making it difficult for Musha to digest all of it in a short time. The War of the Gods, started by the underworld, had now entered the middle and late stages. The strength of both sides had been revealed. Perhaps an opportunity would be needed to declare the end of the war. Among the hostile human kingdoms, there are a large number of demigods who have defected to the underworld. Musha sighed. It won't be easy to end the war in the human world as soon as possible unless the gods directly intervene. But if that's the case, the underworld will naturally not be indifferent. If the battlefield of the gods and the battlefield of the human world are merged, I'm afraid that the human world will really be destroyed. The human world could not withstand the wanton use of the divine power of the gods. Even the goddess in front of him was definitely not a real god at this time. After the Grus constellation sacred garment inheritance ceremony is over, I will promote 5 gold saints and 12 silver saints, the goddess said slowly. This is a gift from Ares. Musha, I need you to select 5 silver saints with enough potential to be promoted, as well as bronze saints. Yes. Musha nodded. It could be said that it was the first time in the history of the sacred to promote 5 gold saints at once. However, the 12 palaces of the sacred could only accommodate 12 gold saints. As for what the 5 newly promoted gold saints would do in the future, it could only be carefully considered after the war. As for promoting to silver saints, it was relatively simple. In fact, if the war was over, it was unknown how many gold saints would be able to survive. They were still in the sacred because it was not yet time to use gold saints. Although this war started because of my sister. The goddess sighed faintly at this time, but there are many hidden contradictions that are difficult to explain. Musha, even now I can't see through the fog of war. This was a topic that involved the gods, so Musha did not dare to make wild guesses. At this time, he could only be a listener. The underworld is different from the divine realm's Mount Pantheon. The goddess sighed at this time and said, after all, the divine realm was created by cutting off the fragments of the world. But the underworld was provided by the underworld king. It is not the true underworld that we know. Therefore, there are many secrets between the Father and the underworld king that the gods do not know. Perhaps this can even be traced back to the true origin of the divine realm. Musha, this time I came in person. Although it was the will of the divine mountain, I also have some private matters that I want to entrust to you. At this time, Musha's expression was solemn. He was still clear that the following matter was the true intention of the goddess to summon him to the goddess temple alone. At this time, a golden ball of light separated from the goddess body and slowly came in front of Musha. Musha's expression was alarmed. He had already felt the thing contained in the golden ball and could not help but turn pale with fright. This is... If I fall in this war of the gods, it will replace me and be reborn in the human world. The goddess' voice became fainter and fainter. Musha, are you prepared to guard it even if you have to give up your life, my most loyal Saint Seiya? This will be the promise that I will guard for the rest of my life. Go. The goddess walked to the throne on the steps, sat down, and closed her eyes. After the battle of the divine garment begins, wake me up, Musha. Musha turned around and left with a grave expression. On the throne, the goddess slowly opened her eyes and faintly sighed. In the future, will it really be as Sister Clotho revealed? The fall of the gods? The person who should not exist, where is he? Holy Domain, Outer City. After layers of inspection, a travel-worn team finally stepped into the territory of Holy Domain. Lamias took off her hat and absent-mindedly looked at the majestic goddess temple in the distance as well as the 12 palaces surrounding it. She could not help but chuckle. Come. I have read a lot of Uncle Che Tion's manga. ########. PS. The next chapter will be before midnight. Chapter 1637. I've reached the intermediate stage? The moonlight in the sanctuary was particularly bright that night. Lamias suddenly had a strange impulse and rejected Suya's visit. She returned to her room at night to practice the meditation training technique. Lamias did not know if it was because she was particularly suited to practice the meditation training technique, or because of the uniqueness of the battlefield of the gods. It was supposed to take at least 3 years to complete the final stage, but she completed it on the 3rd day after reaching the sanctuary. Including the time spent on the road, the intermediate stage was even faster than the beginner stage. According to the explanation of the meditation training technique on the amethyst, the beginner stage was to lay the foundation and plant the seed of power in the soul. The intermediate stage was to awaken the seed of power. At the advanced stage, the seed of power would break through the soil and greatly improve the ability to communicate with the holy garment. Even if the communication was not successful, the seed of power would have awakened and sprouted. Because humans had real power, they had opened the treasure vault of the body's little universe. If they could continue to practice deeply, there was even a chance to awaken the 6th or 7th sense. What are the characteristics of my seed of power? Lamias frowned. She vaguely felt that something seemed to have been injected into her heart, and it was gradually growing, but at present she didn't have any special growth except that her spirit had become better. Her physical strength seemed to be better than before, but it was purely because of the air in the age of the gods, the food, and even the strange power that was everywhere in the air. Calculating the time, she had been in this era for almost 20 days. Was her body beginning to be assimilated here? I can't sleep. Having just finished her practice and had a new breakthrough, Lamias was unexpectedly energetic. She had nothing to do, so she planned to take a good look around the sanctuary. Many places were off-limits, but the range of areas where she could move was not small. Since she wanted to find someone, Lamias could not wait for that unknown person to fall on her head. Only by taking the initiative to attack could she have a higher chance of success, even if the action now was not much different from a blind fly flying around. Lamias had been to the city where the goddess temple was in her era, for sightseeing. But the sanctuary in front of him was obviously different from the temple he had visited before. The most dazzling thing was naturally the 12 zodiac temples. Even at night, the radiance emanating from the 12 zodiac seeds illuminated a large area of the holy domain. Lamp oil and the like were saved quite a bit. There weren't many people on the road except for the patrolling guards. Lamias met several groups of patrolling soldiers on the road, but after checking her identity, they let her pass. There were some places that he had roughly explored during the day after entering the sanctuary, but there were some places that he hadn't. Along the way, Lamias didn't feel anything special. She thought that it had been a fruitless night. Just as she was about to go back, she stopped in front of a building. Here, she had a special feeling, a very special feeling. Lamias couldn't even describe the specifics of this feeling. She didn't know if it was the feeling of meeting the person she was looking for. Anyway, she looked at the building in front of her and couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded. However, there were guards standing guard in front of the building. It was the kind of place where no one was allowed to casually step into. "Who are you?" "This is the place where Lord Maya's body is placed. Unauthorized people are not allowed to enter." The guard came forward and scolded in a low voice. "Body placed?" Lamia's was startled. It was wartime now. The bodies of soldiers on the battlefield would generally be cremated, and even more were buried in the battlefield. To be able to be transported back and temporarily placed in the holy domain, could it be some big shot? But she had an impulse to go in. "Sorry, I'm a female warrior who is participating in the sacred garment inheritance." Lamia's heart skipped a beat. "I've heard of Lord Maya's heroic deeds, so I want to pay my respects. After all, I may only have the opportunity to pay my respects now." The guards exchanged glances and then shook their heads. "You're considerate, but you're not allowed to pay your respects now. Since you're here to participate in the qualification battle, then go back and have a good rest. The qualification battle should be starting soon. I wish you success and contribute your strength to the goddess." "Can't you make an exception?" Lamia's did not give up. "I only asked to take a look. Maybe you can look at me. I swear, I will definitely not spoil the things inside. I just want to take a look. Please go back." The guard raised his voice. "If you really want to come, then wait until you've inherited the sacred garment and become a silver saint of Grus constellation. We will welcome you very much. Goodbye." Lamia's left without turning back. But after she left the guard's line of sight, she took a detour and came to the back of the building. There was also a group of guards here. In fact, there were many guards at the entrance of the building. So if she wanted to enter normally, there was not much possibility. Lamia's tried to make some movements at the back door, but only one of the guards came out to check. There were still a few who were standing in their original positions. She could only really bid farewell. But at this moment, a man dressed in white quietly appeared behind Lamia's. Her first feeling was fear. Especially now that she had trained in the training technique. Her senses had become sharper and her heart was beating wildly. The white-clothed man was taller than Lamia's by a head, but he was not the kind of robust type. The man was expressionlessly sizing up Lamia's. This made her feel as if she was seen through. The seed of the second stage. The man suddenly opened his mouth. "So, you're a candidate for the qualification battle of Grus Constellation's sacred garment?" "Yes, Master." Lamia's quickly lowered her head. This man was quite scary. With just one look, he knew that she had trained in the training technique. He even saw through her progress. "What's your name?" "Lami," Lamia's quickly said. "I'm from the Pegasus camp in the front-line battlefield." The man nodded. "You're not from the sacred domain, nor are you a member of the royal family. But to be able to come here, it means that you have worked hard enough. But if you want to qualify for the qualification battle, the seed of the second stage is not enough. At least the seed of the third stage needs to be awakened to have a chance." "The third stage?" Lamia's frowned. She always felt that even if it was the third stage, it would not be difficult. But the qualification battle was imminent. There was not enough time left for her. "You want to go in?" the white-clothed man asked again. Lamia's heart moved. She quickly nodded. "Yes, I've heard of Master Moy's deeds, so I want to go in and pay my respects." "Pay your respects." The white-clothed man showed a strange look. Then he shook his head and walked directly in front of Lamia's. "Since you want to go in, come with me." Lamia's could not help but widen her eyes. The white-clothed man walked directly to the entrance. When the guards saw him, they quickly knelt down and seemed to want to say something. But the white-clothed man waved his hand and stopped them. After that, the white-clothed man turned around and waved at Lamia's, indicating that she should hurry up and follow. It seemed that she had met a very important person. Lamia's gritted her teeth and walked quickly to the white-clothed man. She saw that the guards were still kneeling down and had no intention to stop her. The white-clothed man did not speak. He directly went up the stairs and walked in. Lamias took a deep breath and followed closely. On the way, the white-clothed man did not stop, nor did he talk to Lamias. He only stopped at the end. In an empty room deep in the building, there were white flowers and a stone platform. On the stone platform, there was a tall woman with a silver mask on her face lying quietly. The white-clothed man silently stood beside the stone platform and looked down at the woman on the stone platform. He did not speak for a long time. Lamias was in a daze. The special feeling in her heart was getting stronger, but it did not seem to be the feeling of finding the person she was looking for. "Didn't you want to pay your respects to her? Why are you standing there?" The white-clothed man looked back and casually looked at her. Lamias suddenly shivered. She walked past the flowers and came to the white-clothed man's side. She carefully looked at the woman on the stone platform. There was no mouth on the body, but there were no signs of breathing. The body was preserved as if it was alive. Perhaps the stone platform had other functions, but the woman was wearing a mask, so she could not see her face clearly. Maya exhausted all of her potential during the battle, and died in the end. The white-clothed man said slowly. Because of her sacrifice, the Allied army won a major victory. But at the same time, we also lost a silver saint. Silver saint? Could this be the Gruss saint? Lamias was shocked. She subconsciously looked up at the white-clothed man. Because she was too shocked, she could not help but open her mouth slightly. "Why? You don't know how to pay your respects to her?" The white-clothed man looked at Lamias again. His eyes narrowed. Lamias was like a frightened animal, her hair standing on end. She quickly lowered her head. I'm just too shocked. I feel sorry for Sir Moy's sacrifice. If Maya did not sacrifice herself, you would not be here today," the white-clothed man said. "And those female warriors who came from afar like you, perhaps you are actually secretly happy because you have gotten a chance. Is it really okay to say it directly?" Lamias was silent. The air suddenly became quiet. She needed to say something to ease the atmosphere. Lamias thought quickly and said quickly. "Master Maya, why is she wearing a mask now?" This may be a very impolite question, but at least it could break the atmosphere. Female Saint Seiya's are not allowed to show their true faces. The white-clothed man glanced at Lamias. From the moment they become Saint Seiya's, women will wear masks. Their masks will accompany them for life. Once they take it off and are seen by men, unless they kill the man, they will have to fall in love with him. Don't you know? I know. Uncle Che Tian wrote it like that too. But how would I know it is the same here? Lamias put on a fake smile and quickly said, "Sir, thank you for bringing me to pay my respects to Master Maya's body. I am satisfied that you have fulfilled my little wish. I will bring you out." The white-clothed man smiled at this time. This made Lamias quite surprised. The white-clothed man had completely grasped her thoughts. She followed behind the white-clothed man with a heavy heart, but she kept looking back. A strong feeling of reluctance made Lamias have an impulse to stay here for a long time. She found that this was because of the power seed in her body. The power seed that could only be considered fast and growing healthily suddenly became very active. The white-clothed man stopped in front of the exit at this time. Lamias looked at the white-clothed man with a little surprise. The white-clothed man turned around and looked directly at Lamias. His eyes suddenly burst out with a strange light. "The power seed in the second stage. It is too difficult to get a good result in the qualification battle. Open your mind, I will help you awaken your power seed and reach the third stage." What? Now is the battlefield of gods. It is good if a human warrior can improve a little bit more power. I hope you can treat this power well. Lamias looked at the white-clothed man in disbelief. But a strong sense of dizziness that came with it directly hit her brain and made it blank. It was as if her soul was suddenly shot out of her body and then roamed the galaxy to see the infinite and bright universe. She didn't know how long had passed, but Lamias gradually woke up. She took a long breath and compared the contents of the training technique, to find that she had reached the third stage. The power seed had been awakened, and the hidden treasury in the human body had been opened. Her vision, hearing, smell, and even her sixth sense seemed to have been greatly improved. A strange power was lurking in her body, and it could erupt with great power at any time. Fighting will. A strange power that the sanctuary warriors had mastered to stimulate and release the potential of the human body. You finally woke up. The one who spoke in front of her was obviously not the white-clothed man, but a guard outside. Lamias had some impression. It was now dawn outside, and the sun was shining. Unknowingly, she had probably spent a night. Lord Musha told me to tell you that you can leave after you wake up, the guard said with a kind look at this time. Lord Musha? Lamias was startled. Musha, the name of the white-clothed man? Yes. The guard nodded. The chief of the Golden Saints, Lord Musha of the Virgo Temple. You are really lucky to get the help of Lord Musha. Lamias suddenly opened her eyes wide. Why was the way this script unfolded so much like Mary Sue? Lamias couldn't help but smell the scent of being arranged. But who could arrange for her? The one who sent her here? This place was separated by who knows how far away in space and time. ############################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################### seconds. PS2. I have been working really hard recently. Clench her fist. Chapter 1638. Trialist's Labyrinth. This was the venue for the battle for the Holy Garment. After the battle for the Holy Garment began, candidates from all over the place entered this huge labyrinth to gather. The Grus constellation's Holy Garment was in the depths of the labyrinth. Only by entering the deepest part of the labyrinth and finding the Grus constellation's Holy Garment and obtaining the recognition of the Holy Garment could one become the new Grus constellation's silver rank. The Grus constellation's Holy Garment is in the depths of the labyrinth. This is a fair opportunity for everyone. You are allowed to use any means to defeat your opponent in the labyrinth, but there is one point that must be defended. You are all soldiers of the Allied army. You can die in battle on the battlefield or in the hands of your enemies, but you must never die in the hands of your comrade. In this battle, killing your comrades is forbidden. Once discovered, even those who can inherit the Holy Garment will be executed. The goddess Saint Seiya does not need to be a guy who will wield a sword at his comrades. Above. Hence, more than 1,000 female warriors from all over the place entered the Trialist's Labyrinth at the same time from different places. Lamia's was at the entrance of the 5th district of the labyrinth. It was called a labyrinth, but in fact it was a huge forest. The Trialist's Labyrinth seemed to be a special space with different districts. Don't waste too much time defeating your opponents on the way. Sister Suya had an idea when she entered the labyrinth. We need to use the shortest time to pass through this district. The real battle is in the deepest part of the labyrinth, which is the ice field where the Holy Garment is. Now, the battle for the Holy Garment had just begun, but Sister Suya already knew the name of the district where the Holy Garment was. This surprised everyone. Lamia's was equally surprised. Sister Suya had looked for her previously and said that she had some information. It seemed that it was true. Apart from herself, before the battle for the Holy Garment began, Sister Suya had already successfully roped in 6 other female warriors. Now, including herself, Sister Suya's team had 8 people. You know how to get out of this forest? Lamia's asked softly beside Sister Suya. What answered her was only a complicated look in Suya's eyes and a strange smile. After a while, Suya suddenly said, "Why, are you scared?" Lamia shook her head. Following the awakening of the power seed, she now had some means to protect herself, unlike when she first arrived. She had already tried to use the seed of power in her body that had already decided the outcome of the battle. In a split second, her fighting spirit was stimulated, allowing her to obtain strength and stamina that far exceeded that of a human being. With a single punch, she was able to shatter a rock that was as tall as a person. This was almost impossible in the past, unless she was using the various types of armor provided by the Black Order. And this time, she relied entirely on her own body. Inhuman. Lamias knew that she had stepped into the world of inhuman, but she was still immeasurably weak. She had seen Priest Stryker sink the Nautilus with one punch. She had also seen Eve annihilate Karen's armor brigade alone. She had also seen the mysterious means of the manor owner, Luo Chiu. Compared to them, she was still an ant that could be easily crushed. If I can inherit the heavenly crane constellation St. Cloth, will it, she would have her own thoughts. If anyone were to face the same situation as her, they would definitely have their own thoughts. Lamias adjusted her mental state and silently checked the equipment for this battle. Every female warrior was assigned a long sword and a shield. As for food and water, they had to find it themselves in the maze. The real battlefield is in the last two areas. Sister Suya took the lead at this time and walked in front. The battles in the periphery belong to those challengers who have no support behind them. You are lucky to follow me. As long as you reach the ice field, you will be qualified to become an elite warrior of the sacred region. Even if you can't become a sacred Seiya, your position in the army will be increased accordingly. This is your chance to change your destiny. So, run as fast as you can, female wolves of the grassland. Everyone rubbed their hands, but their eyes were still looking at Sister Suya with evil intentions. Sister Suya must have more secrets. This was the source of her confidence. Lamias thought for a while, then secretly smeared something on the standard long sword that everyone had. It was impossible to get poison, but she got a few anesthetic things. The so-called sacred Seiya required a heart towards the light, a person with virtue. Lamias felt that the sacred region owed her a Scorpio constellation. It has finally started. It has been a long time since the trial maze was used. I never thought that the silver Saint Cloth of Heavenly Crane constellation would actually use this maze. A white-haired man wearing a gold Saint Cloth was standing at a high point. The huge forest was under his feet. In the maze, every area, every place, there was a gold rank monitoring to prevent the challengers from killing each other. But every area was too big. Even a gold rank would not be able to see everything in an instant, so there were also two silver ranks. With the strength of a silver rank, it was enough to prevent death before it happened. Using a gold rank was just to eliminate the wishful thinking of the challengers. At this time, a silver rank quickly jumped back from the forest to the 5th District Forest Guardian, gold rank of the Golden Palace Scorpio Palace. Master, there is already a small team that has successfully reached the center of the forest and activated the next district. So fast? Gold rank of the Scorpio Palace was surprised. The Battle of the St. Cloth had only just ended half a day ago, and the majority of the challengers were still exploring the first district. Yes, Master. Silver rank, who had just returned, quickly said. It is a small team of 8. The leader is a female warrior called Suya. She seems to be very familiar with the forest. Suya? Gold rank of the Scorpio Palace frowned. Silver rank said. Suya came from the front lines of the Pegasus camp. She is the female warrior leader in charge of feeding the Pegasus under silver rank of the Pegasus constellation. She is 23 years old, and is a female warrior from the Camille clan. Also, Suya should have already awakened her power seed, and can use battle intent. Gold rank of the Scorpio Palace shook his head, expressing that he did not have any impression. The Camille clan was just a small tribe, and was not born in the sacred domain, and was also not a vassal of the various royal families and aristocrats. Being able to use battle intent does not mean anything. Gold rank of the Scorpio Palace said indifferently. Many warriors in the sacred domain are unable to become Saint Seiya, and in their later years, they will choose to leave the sacred domain and return to their hometowns, and maybe leave behind their successors. The sacred domain does not forbid these people from nurturing disciples. Yes. Silver Rank laughed. After all, this is to provide fresh blood to the sacred domain. This Suya's talent is not bad, and she also has the bearing of a commander. She is a good seedling. You seem to think highly of her? Gold Rank of the Scorpio Palace laughed. Silver Rank shook his head. I do not think so. The sacred domain has already nurtured a few seedlings that are prepared to inherit the heavenly crane constellation St. Cloth. This trial, to them, is probably a test. The rest of the challengers, I am afraid they are just tests that they have to pass. I just feel that this kind of fixed future, to the rest of the challengers, is too cruel. This era, to everyone, is the same cruel. Gold Rank of the Scorpio Palace said indifferently, and then he waved his hand. We have already done our job, the rest of the matters will be left to you. I know what to do. Silver Rank nodded his head quickly. After that, Gold Rank of the Scorpio Palace directly left. In this trial, Gold Rank of the Scorpio Palace's use had already been used up. They actually had other important matters to settle. That was the real highlight, to choose a suitable silver rank, through the ceremony, to become a new gold rank. Regarding the promotion of silver rank to Gold Rank of the Scorpio Palace already had a suitable candidate in mind, taking advantage of the fight for the Saint Cloth. He would give that little brat a little special training. Just as he left the trial maze, Gold Rank of the Scorpio constellation frowned. Powerful strength also brought a powerful sense of touch. The moment danger approached, this Gold Rank of the Scorpio constellation immediately exploded with an absolutely powerful fighting spirit, although it was not to the point of burning, but it was enough for him to block a sneak attack from the shadows. A black shadow, and he immediately separated upon contact. After a short exchange, the sneak attacker did not gain any advantage. Gold Rank of the Scorpio constellation looked over with a serious expression, only to see a black shadow moving stealthily on the ground, after which it appeared more than 10 meters away. Underworld King's Gladiator. Gold Scorpio's serious expression turned into one of shock. This was the sacred domain, the place where the goddess descended, the place where the 12 gold ranks guarded. However, an underworld gladiator had silently invaded this place. How could he not be shocked? Was there a problem with the sacred region's defense? Or could it be that there was a traitor in the sacred region? In an instant, many questions appeared in Huang Jin's mind. He took a step back, not because he was afraid of the Dark Gladiator. Huang Jin had never been afraid of the Dark King's warriors. Instead, he needed to bring this matter back. There might be a great hidden danger in the sacred domain. As expected of one of the 12 gold ranks of the sacred region, Scorpio, the Black Shadow was wearing a strange purplish-black saint cloth. The Dark Gladiator's face was pale, but exceptionally handsome. I originally thought that a sneak attack would be able to make you suffer a little. Gold Rank of the Scorpio constellation coldly snorted, and his fighting spirit erupted once again. If he wanted to warn the other gold ranks, the best way was to use his fighting spirit. But at this moment, an enormous aura of death enveloped him, instantly sealing the surrounding space. Gold Rank of the Scorpio constellation couldn't help but be alarmed once again. This was because he felt a trace of power that belonged to the gods within this aura of death. This was definitely not an attack that a Dark Gladiator could unleash. Other than this Dark Gladiator, there must be someone else. As this thought flashed through his mind, Gold Rank of the Scorpio constellation felt as if there was a light at his back, and he instantly activated all his 6 senses. In the next instant, Gold Rank of the Scorpio constellation felt a terrifying existence behind him. He turned around, and behind him was a young man wearing black clothes. An enormous aura of death was emitted from this young man's body. This young man stretched out his hand, and it was as if a hand had reached out from the darkness, easily grabbing onto Gold Rank of the Scorpio constellation's neck. Gold rank of the Scorpio constellation was actually unable to resist. "You are from hell." Gold rank of the Scorpio constellation turned pale with fright at this moment, feeling the approach of death. His only thought was that the sacred region was about to face an unprecedented disaster. Immediately, gold rank of the Scorpio constellation no longer hesitated, and he fully erupted with his fighting spirit, burning his potential in an attempt to break through the blockade. Gotcha! It was too late. This was gold rank of the Scorpio constellation's final thought. His body slowly fell down, and his gaze was fixed on the face of this terrifying young man, the young master of hell, Prince Poulin. "Your Highness!" At this moment that dark gladiator quickly walked over, and knelt down beside the black-clothed young man. This subordinate is incompetent, and was unable to kill Scorpio constellation in one strike. If the 12 gold ranks could be killed through assassination, the war in the human countries would not have dragged on until now. At this moment, the black-clothed young man, Prince Poulin, said indifferently, "The aura of death has appeared here, and the sacred region should be able to react quickly. You can put on a show for me." "Understood." After saying that, Prince Poulin lowered his head and glanced at the fallen gold rank of the Scorpio constellation. He expressionlessly stretched out his arm, and with a slash of his finger, fresh blood dripped down from his wrist. It directly dripped onto the gold rank of the Scorpio constellation. Not long after, gold rank of the Scorpio constellation's body melted, and the gold rank of the Scorpio constellation peeled off. The gold rank of the Scorpio constellation instantly dimmed, and then it flew towards Prince Poulin. At this moment, Prince Poulin's face gradually changed, and finally turned into the appearance of gold rank of the Scorpio constellation. After this, all the aura of death retracted. After transforming into gold rank of the Scorpio constellation, Prince Poulin's body erupted with a battle-intent fluctuation similar to that of gold rank of the Scorpio constellation, instantly attracting the attention of several gold ranks of the 12 palaces. "Bear with it a little." Looking at the dark gladiator in front of him, Prince Poulin raised his hand and said softly, "I will be very heavy-handed. For the King of Hell." The dark gladiator stood up, and similarly released his own battle intent. At the center of the town square, where a large number of souls were gathered, a black cat slowly walked in. Walking to the front of the man in the center of the square, the black cat automatically stood up and spoke in human language. "This time's plundering is enough. If there's more, the will of the world will not let you go." The man in the suit was silent, and after a while, he shook his head and said softly, "It's not enough." "Not enough?" The black cat was startled, and said in disbelief, "How can it not be enough? It's enough every time. How can it not be enough this time? It seems that there's something wrong." At this moment, the man in the suit suddenly lowered his head, and looked at his palm. His palm was currently holding a small remote control with red and blue buttons. But the remote control was not what the man in the suit was really concerned about. What he was concerned about was his palm. His palm suddenly faded, as if it had disappeared, but in an instant it returned again. This caused him to involuntarily sink into contemplation. At this moment the black cat suddenly turned around and said in a deep voice, "He's here, and seems to have brought along a burden." Finally, Marlotta, who had been following Teacher Poulin closely within 5 steps, arrived at the source of the light pillar shooting towards the sky. ######PS. As usual. Chapter 1639. As he got closer to the central square of the town, even though he had lost his ability, Mayor Lotta could still sense the aura of death in the air. He could tell that he was about to come into contact with the Nether King, who could save the Lord God of Darkness who was imprisoned in the inhuman domain. Mayor Lotta did not know why the Nether King fell into the present world. That kind of thing was too far away from him. He was born after the kingdom of God was destroyed, and it was a long time after that. The inhuman domain had not been discovered by the Hui Yao and was just wandering in the long river of time and space. Only some descendants of the gods with weak bloodlines were left. It did not matter. As long as he could find the Nether King, and save the imprisoned Lord God of Darkness, the Soth God clan would definitely restore the glory of the gods and return to them in human domain. Mr. Poolin's footsteps finally stopped. In the huge light beam, a man and a cat slowly walked out. The man's tall hat was lowered, and Mr. Poulin could only see the man's face below his nose. However, the black cat gave him a feeling of déjà vu. Mayor Lotta's eyes widened. He recognized that the man in the suit in front of him was the guy who killed several of his companions at sea. "O Nether King," Mayor Lotta muttered at this time. He slowly walked past Mr. Poulin, but he suddenly woke up at the 5th step. He stopped, but his expression was still excited. "I knew it. The Nether King is you." The man in the suit did not respond. He was still looking down. However, the black cat beside him blinked at this time. After looking at Mayor Lotta for a while, it said with a little surprise, "You are a little different from before. Why did your power disappear?" "I also want to know." This was the most painful thing in Mayor Lotta's heart. At this time, it was directly exposed by a black cat. He felt even more embarrassed. As for a black cat that could talk, it made Mayor Lotta feel strange. Was a cat that could talk special? In the inhuman domain, even grass that could talk would be needed. Even worse, some wizards with holes in their brains would even cut off their lower body and use special wizards to bestow new life to their lower body, turning it into a walking cannon. Then, they would admire it from the side. However, the black cat quickly shook its head and said nonchalantly, "Forget it. You brought him here anyway. As long as the result is the same, it doesn't matter if he has power or not. Your mission is complete. You can die now." My Lotta instantly felt as if his heart was being gripped tightly by something. The feeling of fear and suffocation made his expression incomparably painful. In an instant, he knelt on the ground and tightly clutched his chest. His expression was ferocious as he opened his mouth, but he was unable to make a sound. His eyes were filled with despair. However, at this moment, Teacher Poulin slowly walked over and extended his hand to help my Lotta up. Only then did the feeling of death gradually fade from my Lotta's body. "He still has a lot of time." Teacher Poulin looked at the black cat and then looked at the man in the suit. He furrowed his brows and the strange feeling in his heart became more and more intense. "Including everyone in this small town, their time isn't up yet. It won't care about small changes." The man in formal attire finally opened his mouth. His voice was almost the same as Teacher Poulin's, but it was a little deeper. "The existence of some stages more or less has some privileges. As long as you don't want to go against it and you can't change it either." "Who is it?" Teacher Poulin asked curiously. "There are many sayings." The man in the suit lowered his face and smiled. "Heaven's will, fate, Gaia's will? Basically all of them, but to be more precise, it should be will. The will of the world." Teacher Poulin thought for a while, then shook his head. He followed the feeling in his heart and asked, "Are you luring me here?" "No, I'm not luring you." The man in the suit slowly raised his head, and then took off his hat. "I'm just ensuring that you will come here." "Two kings of hell. How could it be?" When the man in the suit took off his hat, Mayor Lotta, who had just recovered his breath, instantly screamed out in horror. Even Teacher Poulin, who had always had an extremely steady temperament and was even occasionally a little mischievous, opened his mouth in astonishment at this moment. Soon after, his brows were tightly knitted as he sank into contemplation. "To Teacher Poulin?" Miss Maid murmured as if she was thinking of something. On the only bell tower in the town, she was leaning against Luacio's side, reflecting the night wind. "It's becoming unstable," Boss Luo suddenly said in a low voice. This sentence came out of nowhere. Even the knowledgeable Miss Maid couldn't guess the meaning of her master's words at this time. Seeing Miss Maid's rare confused and cute look, Boss Luo chuckled and didn't say anything. He just held her hand and said in a low voice, "Look again." Miss Maid was stunned. She focused her attention and looked at it again. She was shocked. Have you ever used a satellite TV with a bad signal? Everything in front of her eyes was. The whole town was like a satellite TV with a bad signal. It seemed to be disturbed by something. The picture was constantly changing, distorting, and missing, but it was trying to maintain the current scene. This matter seemed to be directly related to Lamia's. Miss Maid took a deep breath. She didn't need to do such a thing. It was more like an instinctive action. She looked at her master's hand subconsciously. This was the ability brought by her master and the vision shared by Luocio. Even though she had an extraordinary background as a maid in the shop, Miss Maid wasn't in the same position as the shop owner. She knew countless secrets, but that was only because she had accumulated them over a long period of time. This is the change of the long river of time, Luocio said in a low voice. You said you would accompany me to the end of the long river. Master, you saw the future? The future was a taboo topic. Miss Maid knew that the previous one had entered the realm of the future, but she seemed to have suffered a lot. But as a maid, she had no way to know how much the previous one had suffered. But obviously, the future was a matter that even the shop owner needed to consider carefully. No. Boss Luo shook his head. I only see the current variables, and you see the same? But the future me may be looking at the present me. And I am also looking at the past. Miss Maid was shocked again. As a person who managed all the external affairs of Boss Luo, even the life value, she clearly sensed that her master's life was rapidly evaporating. In a short moment, 30% to 40% of his life had evaporated. Master, stop. She showed a frightened look, even overstepping her identity as a maid. Don't worry. Luocio said indifferently, I'll stay for a day. Don't we still have the income from the Master God plan? I won't die. You said that you will accompany me to the end of the river of time, but I haven't seen the end yet. Miss Maid was silent, but seeing Boss Luo's life value evaporating rapidly, pain and fear appeared in her blue eyes. She quickly moved her fingers, and a black flame instantly broke through space and entered the dimensional crack. The next moment, the second entrance to the modern world of the Master God plan. Zhao Lu and Chen Mingming, who were doing their daily work, received a notification at the same time. Don't worry about the impact on the modern world of the area, and don't worry about the server load. Open all entrances to the modern world to the greatest extent, and even lower the entry threshold. At the same time, another command was sent to Eve in the manner through his mind. Increase the difficulty to nightmare level. In an instant, in the world where the Master God plan was located, almost all the chosen ones who were conquering dungeons and exploring new areas felt the sudden change in the world. The difficulty increased by several levels almost instantly. Correspondingly, the rewards increased by several levels. Opportunities came with risks, and risks naturally came with opportunities. An unyielding and strong soul would be fearless of any challenge, break through layers of difficulties, and finally go against the current. Reach the top. Originally, this alternate world was the starting point of the dreams of those souls who were willing to enter. With the two instructions of Miss Maid, Boss Luo instantly felt that his vitality had increased. But it was just a drop in the bucket for the life he was evaporating at this time. At most, it could only slow down the evaporation speed a little. Wasn't it too radical to harvest souls like this? Luocio didn't know whether this radical action was good or bad. He had never been completely rationalized by the altar, and he had always kept a little bit of human nature. As long as one was a human, no one would know whether what they did was right or wrong. But beyond this level, I don't even feel guilty at all. Boss Luo was silent in his heart. Because of his decision, a large number of high-quality souls were going through unprecedented tests and facing death. But he really didn't feel any discomfort. Perhaps this was the real reason why the altar deprived the shop owner of his emotions. Only those who had never sympathized with living creatures would understand the true nature of things. Boss Luo even closed his eyes at this moment. The future couldn't be seen. Even if it could be seen, there were endless variables. There were countless possible futures, and the price to pay was too great. Seeing 3,000 futures clearly, there were still 3,000 futures that had been seen before, or even more. But in the past, there was only one. Because it had already happened, even if it was changing, it had already happened. 2 rays of golden light were the first to arrive. They represented the Taurus of the 12 palaces and gold of the Leo palace. What happened? Gold of the Taurus palace had a rough body, and his voice was the same. He asked immediately. The 2 gold didn't seem to notice that the current gold of the Scorpio palace had already been taken over. Regardless of appearance, aura, or the Scorpio saint cloth on his body, how could it be fake? This was the sanctuary. And the goddess had even descended to the sanctuary. Prince Pulin of the underworld was really doing something crazy. He looked at gold of the Taurus palace and Leo palace, then lowered his head and pointed at the unconscious figure lying on the ground. Underworld gladiator? Gold of the Leo palace's expression changed slightly. This is the majestic stars gladiator, one of the giants of the current underworld gladiator camp. Prince Pulin said with a heavy voice, looking at the situation. He wants to sneak into the trial taker's maze and destroy the inheritance of the heavenly crane Saint Cloth. The majestic star on the ground was only unconscious and not dead. They could still dig out a lot of information from his body. Gold of the Taurus palace and Leo palace had already realized the seriousness of the situation. How could the underworld gladiator pass through the sanctuary? There might be a traitor in the sanctuary. At this moment, another figure arrived. He was dressed in white, and had a special aura that made people feel at ease. Head of the 12 palaces, gold of the Virgo palace, Mu Sha. Mu Sha, you're here. Gold of the Leo palace greeted first and explained the situation. Mu Sha glanced at gold of the Scorpio palace and suddenly said, "Just now, I vaguely felt an obscure death energy. It seems to be much purer than the underworld gladiator's underworld gladiator battle intent." Prince Pulin was slightly shocked, but his expression did not change. He nodded and said, "He has the protection of the underworld king on him. I also spent a lot of effort to break the protection." Mu Sha looked around. The surroundings were indeed almost completely destroyed. A gold saint could easily destroy a city if they wanted to. This underworld gladiator, I'll take him away for interrogation. Also, I'll go see the goddess and explain this matter. Mu Sha thought for a while and said, "You guys stay here. There might be other underworld gladiators sneaking in. Try to keep an eye on the heavenly crane Saint Cloth. I don't want more accidents to happen in this inheritance." After saying that, without waiting for the 3 gold's response, Mu Sha directly picked up the unconscious underworld gladiator and left the trial taker's maze. It seems like Mu Sha still can't let go of Maya. Gold of the Leo palace sighed. Gold of the Taurus palace glared at him and said unhappily, "If your biological sister died and her Saint Cloth was being fought over, how would you feel?" "I'm just saying." Gold of the Leo palace did not want to talk to him. "I'm leaving. Then, I'll patrol the surroundings and inform the others." Prince Pulin looked at Gold of the Taurus palace and said casually, "Anyway, I have nothing to do. I'll accompany you." Gold of the Taurus palace walked up and put his arm around Mu Sha's shoulder. "There's nothing to see in this real battle. Maybe it will be more interesting in the end." "Okay." Prince Pulin did not refuse. He only looked in the direction where Mu Sha disappeared. Originally, he thought, he should be the one to bring the underworld gladiator to the temple. At the very least, as the person involved, Mu Sha had already brought him along. Just knock them out. Big Sister Suya loosened her grip and a female warrior who had fainted from being strangled fell to the ground weakly. Big Sister Suya wiped the sweat on her forehead and looked around. "Very good, none of the 8 people have fallen. Then, let's go to the next area." "The next area?" Lamia's felt the exhaustion of her physical strength. After passing through another area, they would enter the depths of the maze, the ice field. Hashtag, 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 hashtag. Chapter 1640. The first area was a forest, and after the forest was a wasteland. Under the lead of Suya's elder sister, this wild team that was not from the sacred domain and did not have the backing of the royal family and nobles quickly passed through the first two areas. After entering the third area, they would basically encounter more challengers who had entered from other entrances. Of course, due to the speed and difficulty, the number of people they would encounter would also decrease. Similarly, the strength of the opponents would naturally be stronger. The third area was an underground palace that was extremely complex. It really did look a little like a maze. Suya's elder sister seemed to have slowed down a lot. At this time, they had not encountered any challengers who had entered from other entrances. We have been fighting continuously for a long time. Let's rest here for a while and replenish our strength. Suya's elder sister led the team into an empty room in the underground maze. They even found a pool here, and it was running water, but they did not know where the water came from. There were almost no stops along the way, and many of the female warriors were already unable to endure the thirst. Now that they had a supply, their spirits were immediately lifted. Suya's elder sister took some water from the pool and came to Lamia's side. You haven't drunk water along the way, right? Replenish a little, or you will become dehydrated. Lamia's took it, but she resisted the impulse of her body and didn't drink it immediately. Suya's elder sister looked at the rest of the female warriors, smiled, sat down, and whispered, "You are really very careful." Lamia said indifferently, "After all, I don't know if there are any hidden enemies in this challenge other than those that can be seen. Besides, there is only one sacred garment, isn't there? Even if it was a team, in the final battle, it would probably be the most dangerous combination. Why, do you think I will harm you now?" Suya's elder sister said rather amusedly. The trial maze was only opened after the battle of the sacred garment began. I came here with you all the way, so there is absolutely no possibility of setting it in advance. You suspect that I will secretly harm you, and I will not blame you, just as I will be wary of you. But you say that I can tamper with the water in advance. That is really too much. Lamia shrugged, but she still refused to drink. Suya's eldest sister smiled. Lamia's didn't drink, but she drank it in big mouthfuls. Lamia's still didn't move her mouth. Her lips were so dry that they were stuck together tightly. She realized that under this kind of extreme condition, the effect of the training technique seemed to be better. The training technique had basically reached the third stage, and the awakening of the power seed was considered complete. However, it could still continue to be trained, as if there was no end to it. Perhaps the third stage of the awakening of the power seed was the true beginning of the training technique. Suddenly, a dull sound was heard. Lamias frowned and saw a female warrior in the team fall to the ground. The animal skin bag that she used to drink water directly fell to the ground. The rest of the female warriors were shocked, but all of them had a splitting headache. Not long after, they all fell to the ground and lost consciousness. Lamias didn't say anything. She only used the quickest movement to stand up, unsheathe her sword, and took a defensive stance. Suya's eldest sister didn't seem to have any intention to make a move. She was just casually nibbling on a fruit that was harvested from the front. "All right, it really wasn't me," Lamia sneered. Suya's eldest sister said indifferently, "What I said is true. I have never entered the training maze before, and it's even more impossible for me to tamper with it." Lamia still sneered. "It's up to you to believe it or not." Suya's eldest sister slowly stood up. "I just happen to know that there are some problems with this pool. Your cautiousness allowed you to walk forward a little in this fight, but only a little. The saint robe of heavenly crane constellation is mine." Lamias didn't say anything. A wave of fighting spirit that wasn't considered strong, but was abnormally strong, slowly emitted out. She knew that Suya's eldest sister also had the training technique. And even before she went to the sacred Saint Galaxy, she had already started training. But to what extent, she didn't know. Maybe she had also awakened a power seed, and was even stronger than her own. So powerful. Suya's eldest sister sighed. When I first met you, I'm afraid you didn't even know what a power seed was. I didn't give you the complete training technique. So to say, this is what you got from Saturn? Lamia still didn't say anything. But at this moment, Suya's eldest sister suddenly waved her sword. The speed was so fast that it shocked Lamia's. Block. Retreat. The huge strength made Lamia's retreat 2 steps before she stopped. But her arms were already numb. Suya's eldest sister also had fighting spirit, and was much stronger than her. In such a short time, not only did you awaken a power seed, you even have such strength. Suya's eldest sister shook her head. I'm a little regretful, I only took action now to deal with you. So much so, I shouldn't have pulled you into my team. Actually, it would have been better for you to take action in the ice fields. Lamia said quickly. Suya's eldest sister said indifferently, that is the safest place to take action, and I don't need to waste any energy. In the 2 consecutive regions, they have already successfully saved me a lot of energy, and that is enough. I will make you tired. Lamia's waved the sword in her hands, her numb arms had already recovered. You are not my opponent. Suya's eldest sister shook her head. This level is not enough, entering the ice fields is too difficult for you. Heavenly Crane Constellation's Saint Robe, the sacred Saint Galaxy, has already nurtured candidates, we are just their trial stones. Try. In terms of words, Lamia's was not afraid of anyone. In the modern world, anyone was the king of all mouths, and would never lose. Suya's eldest sister laughed lightly, but slowly retreated. At the same time, she reached into her bosom, and suddenly threw something towards Lamia's. Lamia's was already paying attention, and when she saw an object flying towards her, she subconsciously swung her sword and slashed it. It was directly slashed open, and what fell to the ground was actually a torn beast skin. Lamia's was startled, but Suya's eldest sister quickly left the empty room, without leaving any words. Lamia's was extremely suspicious, and after a while, she used her sword to pick up the beast skin on the ground. This is the map of the maze? How did she have it? She did not immediately believe that the map was real, but was thinking about Suya's intention of giving her the map. Normally, with such a cheating tool like the map, if it was her, she would have kept it a secret. Give it to the opponent? Impossible. No, it's possible. Lamia's quickly recalled every word that Suya said. Suya's not the only one who has the map. The warriors nurtured by the sacred Saint Galaxy, could everyone have a copy? If these 1,000 challengers were all here for the sake of training the cultivator of the sacred domain. Is she trying to let me, in the final battle of the ice plains, add a little more variable to eat me? Lamia's frowned. Suya's intention was most likely this. This also showed that the map was real, and it was undeniable. As long as she wanted to obtain the heavenly crane constellation's Saint Cloth, it would be hard to reject this map. Connecting all these, Lamia's did not use her sword to fiercely scratch the wall, and softly scolded. Who said that the ancient people all had retarded halos? No, the ancient people definitely had retarded halos. In the empty room, those female warriors who were sleeping soundly on the ground were definitely retarded halos. Sacred Saint Galaxy, Goddess Temple. When Virgo Temple's golden Musha carried majestic stars underworld gladiator, the goddess was resting on the throne with her eyes closed. What's the matter? The goddess did not open her eyes. A underworld gladiator has infiltrated the sacred Saint Galaxy. Musha threw the unconscious underworld gladiator on the ground. After I woke him up, I interrogated him again. He said that it was to destroy the inheritance of the heavenly crane constellation's Saint Cloth, and to attack the morale of the sacred Saint Galaxy. The goddess slowly opened her eyes, and Musha woke up Majestic Star's underworld gladiator in the next second. The underworld gladiator felt the divine might from the goddess, and under his frightened expression, there was also the reverence of facing a god. "I'm very sorry for causing you harm," the goddess suddenly said. "You are Uncle Hades's warrior. If you want to come to the sacred Saint Galaxy as a guest, you are very welcome here. Next time, don't sneak in." The Majestic Star's underworld gladiator did not say anything. He had already predetermined what kind of punishment he would face when he met this goddess. This goddess, other than the Master of the Sky, was the most taboo deity on Mount Myriad deities. As for the three goddesses who controlled fate, they should be the most taboo gods. However, the three goddesses were outside of everything. Although they were also on Mount Pantheon, they had never interfered with anything, and had always maintained a neutral position. "Thank you for your tolerance." Majestic Star's thoughts turned quickly, and he slowly stood up, even nodding to Musha as if he did not care about Musha's interrogation of him before. He looked at the goddess again, thought for a moment and said, "In that case, I can leave, right?" "No." At this time, the goddess said indifferently, "You still need to stay here for now. Otherwise, who can take your master away?" Majestic Star's expression instantly changed. Facing the vast divine might of the goddess in front of him, an instinctive fear suddenly arose. He did not consider anything, and at the first moment, he unleashed all the potential in his body, and without another word, he fled towards the temple. The exit was right in front of him. Very good. The goddess and the gold of Virgo temple did not seem to have reacted. He had already seen the light of the exit. But at this time, a hand stretched out from behind him, and in the next moment, the world spun, and Majestic Star's underworld gladiator once again returned in front of the goddess. Beside her, the gold chief, Musha slowly lowered her hand. Majestic Star could not help but feel despair. In just a moment, he understood the power of the 12 gold chief, the gold of Virgo temple. It was comparable to the gods. At this time, the goddess raised her hand, and a ray of light shot out from her finger, and Majestic Star instantly fell down. Then, the goddess slowly said, "Leave him here. Musha, watch the fight for the Heavenly Crane Temple's sacred garment." Musha slightly nodded, and did not say anything, slowly retreating from the temple. At this time, in the temple, other than the fainted Majestic Star and the goddess on the throne, there seemed to be no third person. But in the darkness, there was suddenly the sound of footsteps. A trace of light flashed in the goddess' eyes, and at this time, she looked down. A woman wearing black and white made attire slowly walked out. She slowly circled around Majestic Star, and then stopped, lifted her skirt and smiled. "Hello, Your Highness Athena." "Hello, Miss Eleanor." The goddess nodded. "So, this time, your master does not plan to come personally, Miss Maid?" Eleanor was still smiling. "Your Highness Athena, I've already prepared what you want. You can just let me deliver it. Besides, Your Highness Athena, didn't you purposely leave Mount Pantheon and choose to stay in the holy region?" As she spoke, Miss Eleanor opened her palm, and a multi-sided, azure-colored irregular crystal appeared out of thin air, and slowly rose, and was delivered in front of the goddess. "According to your request, we have already cleaned the inside." Miss Eleanor smiled. Without gods, without faith, the 3,000 seeds of humanity in the stage of ignorance. The goddess was silent, and the irregular crystal floated in front of her. The goddess suddenly frowned. "There seems to be some extra things inside." Eleanor smiled and waved her hand, and the irregular crystal instantly shot out a ray of light. Then, a figure fell from midair, like a dog crawling. It was a pretty girl with short white hair. The moment the girl landed, her face was instantly entangled by several black shadows, and her ability to speak was sealed. Then, her whole body. She was tied up like a dumpling, and could only struggle on the ground. Just a servant in charge of cleaning. At this time, Eleanor smiled indifferently and said, Don't mind, if your highness is satisfied with this product, I will naturally take the servant away at the end. One question. The goddess did not pay too much attention to the tied-up girl on the ground, and instead asked expressionlessly, "Why is there an additional condition of holding a battle for the holy garment in sanctuary?" However, Eleanor said, "Your highness misunderstands, this is not an additional condition, but your highness needs to do this, and then with your contribution, it is just right for this unexplored small world." The goddess on the divine throne was silent for a while before slowly stretching out her other hand. A black card slowly floated out from the center of her palm. "The reward is already inside." With that, the goddess waved her hand, and the black card shot directly towards Miss Eleanor. "Also, I do not wish for a third party to know about this matter." Miss Eleanor said indifferently, "Your Highness, please rest assured, we will do our best to protect the customer's privacy. Unless there are other customers who are willing to pay a large sum of money to inquire about it, and also to inquire about it by name." The goddess did not comment, but said, "Since the battle for the holy garment in Grus constellation has been held according to your request, it is currently in the midst of being held. If you want to watch, feel free to do so. Then, goodbye, Your Highness." Miss Eleanor nodded slightly, then reached out and picked up the white-haired girl who was writhing unhappily on the ground. She disappeared from the temple. The goddess looked at the floating irregular crystal in her palm, and suddenly sighed, hopefully. The legend can be continued. Trialist's Labyrinth. Lamias, who was looking at the map left by elder sister Su Ye and feeling the way ahead, suddenly stopped. Palpitations. Excitement, as if his heart was about to jump out of his chest. He felt as if his brain was about to explode. This feeling? Could it be that the person I am looking for has appeared? Hashtag. PS. As usual. Chapter 1641. He did not give her any hints, and directly sent her to this battlefield of the gods, where there would be no corpses left at any moment, and asked her to find a person. Without any hints, the only thing she knew was that if the person she was looking for appeared, she would know. How would I know? How would I know? In the beginning, facing such a difficult mission, Lamias rejected it in her heart. Although her body was still quite honest, cowardly, at least she came. In fact, although the battlefield of the gods was full of danger, Lamias was relatively safe during this period of time. She even mixed in with the battle for the Grus constellation Saint Cloth. This person seems to be in the sacred saint region now. Lamias was currently ecstatic. As for the battle for the Grus constellation Saint Cloth, to hell with it. As long as she could complete any task, she would return to her original state. What could be more attractive than this reward? Nothing. At this moment, Lamias even wanted to leave this trial maze immediately, and then follow the feeling in her heart, wander around the sacred saint region, and rush in front of the mission character at the first moment. I give up. I give up on this battle. Fiercely throwing the beast's skin map on the ground, Lamias raised her head and shouted loudly in the passage of the maze, I give up on this battle for the Saint Cloth. Please let me leave this trial maze. Respected Silver Master. Respected Gold Master. Please let me leave. She did not know who was in charge of monitoring this area, but there was definitely someone hiding in the dark, silently watching this battle, so, shouting was the right thing to do. Silver Master. Gold Master. Anyone can anyone hear me? Lamias raised her voice again. I give up on this battle, of my own free will. No one forced me. Master. You give up? Finally, under the continuous shouting, Lamias received a response. The response gave her a familiar feeling. She immediately turned around, only to see a man in white standing behind her with an indifferent expression. Musha. The Gold Master of the 12 Zodiacs, the man closest to God. From the guard guarding the body of the previous Grus constellation Saint Seiya, Lamias already knew the true identity of the man in white. Yes, Lord Musha. Lamia's didn't want to get too entangled with Mu Sha, even if Mu Sha had helped her awaken the seed of power. To an ordinary fighter, this was probably a huge favor, but to Lamia's, even a huge favor couldn't compare to the opportunity to return to her original time and space. She didn't belong to this era. She didn't have any sense of belonging, only constant fear and hesitation. Why give up? Mu Sha was silent for a moment before she frowned and said in confusion, "As long as you pass through this area, you will be able to enter the ice field. Currently, your condition is not bad, so you still have a chance. People who can awaken power seeds have stronger minds, and you are not the type to give up easily." "I am." At this time, Lamia's did not hide anything and said, "I will submit to the strong, I will also bully the weak. I am more afraid of death than anyone else. I am the typical type of person who bullies the weak and fears the strong. The worst kind of woman you can't imagine is talking about me. I can't continue this challenge, I can't take this hardship. I know that the final winner will definitely be the seed fighter nurtured by the sanctuary, so why should I be the green leaf that sets them off? I won't get any benefits at all. Therefore, you shouldn't have any expectations from me. You can even take back the seed of power you gave me." In the face of Lamia's rapid-fire reasons, even the 12 Zodiac's lead disciple, who was close to the realm of God, opened his mouth slightly. After a while, Mu Sha shook her head and said indifferently, "Although the difficulty of this challenge is very low, the fact that you can come this far already proves that you have a certain level of strength. Moreover, before the start of the challenge, it has already been said that this challenge will not have any casualties. The silver and gold hidden in the maze are not decorations, they will ensure the safety of every challenger." "I can't take hardship," Lamia said with a tough attitude. "Unless the holy garment is placed in front of me for me to directly inherit, I can't continue. I'm too thirsty and tired and hungry." Mu Sha shook her head and said, "Only by winning the final challenge can you get the holy garment." "That's it," Lamia's quickly said. "The sanctuary has no rule that a challenger is not allowed to give up voluntarily. Even a gold can't ignore a person's will." In the past, there was indeed no such rule. Mu Sha shook her head at this moment, but now there is. "Challenger Lami, listen, you are not allowed to quit in the middle of the challenge. You can only choose to go to the end, and you must do your best, otherwise you can only stay in this maze and wait for the next opening." Lamia's was stunned. Mu Sha had disappeared, but something was left on the ground. Lamia's frowned and opened the thing left by Mu Sha. Suddenly, dozens of alpacas galloped through her heart. "Did I offend you?" "Drop." What Mu Sha left was some food, which matched Lamia's reason. She was hungry and tired, and couldn't take hardship, but she quickly picked up the food on the ground and ate it, feeling that it was delicious. "Looks like this gold chief means that if I don't clear this maze I can't leave?" Lamia's couldn't help but think gloomily, this plot is not right. At this moment, a huge force suddenly came, and Lamia's felt as if she was sucked into the whirlpool of the sea. Her whole body was pulled up and quickly sucked into the depths of the maze. When she came back to her senses, she only felt an instant of coldness that seemed to freeze her soul. Her surroundings were actually a vast expanse of whiteness. Ice field. The final area of the holy garment fight. Lamia's couldn't help but be stunned. In the depth. "Master Mu Sha, what are you doing?" "I have my own ideas." The silver fighter instantly stopped talking. In the sanctuary, as the chief, Mu Sha's words were equivalent to that of a goddess. The sanctuary, in front of a mountain. The entrances to the so-called trial-takers' maze were at the bottom of this mountain. It was actually connected to a strange alternate space. At this moment, near one of the entrances to the trial-takers' maze, a furry figure slowly hung down. When the white-haired girl was placed on the ground, the black shadow on her face finally unraveled automatically. "Do you know that I'm my boss's most beloved concubine? If you treat me like this, Aren't you afraid that I'll make things difficult for you in the future? The white-haired girl sneered and said, Come, 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 tell me your number in the Ark of the Covenant. When I'm back, I'll tell the boss to take it out for me and use it to light a sky lantern. If there's really a next boss, Miss Eleanor said expressionlessly, I'm really worried about his future life. The white-haired girl, Nero sneered and said, I'm proficient in 36 storylines, 72 postures, and 108 positions. After my boss had me, he was so happy that he took off every day and was unwilling to land. How can an old virgin like you, who only knows how to behave, compare to me? It seems that you're still lacking in your training. Miss Eleanor shook her head and waved her hand again to cover Nero's mouth. However, Nero seemed to have expected this. When the black shadow wrapped around her mouth, her forehead suddenly split open and another mouth grew out. La 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 la, are you stupid? I have mouths all over my body now. If you can, beat me to death. I used this trick to make my boss happy. If you can do it, then do it. La 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 la. At the places where she was tied up, mouths grew out one after another. Nero's voice kept overlapping. It looked quite horrifying. Miss Eleanor's gaze trembled slightly. However, she, who always had a textbook demeanor, quickly calmed down and said coldly, I can't help but suspect that you're the descendant of those who call themselves the Great Old Ones. Nero continued to stick out her tongue. Miss Eleanor's expression became colder. At this moment, she waved her hand and a huge force threw Nero into one of the entrances of the trial-taker's maze. Master wants me to tell you that the opportunity for you to return is inside. If you can return, then return. It's inappropriate for him to interfere. As she spoke, Miss Eleanor waved her hand again and shot an object in Nero's direction. Looking at Nero, who had completely disappeared from the entrance, Miss Eleanor slowly heaved a sigh of relief. Currently, even she had too many doubts. Ever since this black soul who called himself Nero appeared from the future, Miss Eleanor's heart was filled with questions. She heard a lot of things from Nero. When Nero was thrown into the small world that she had to hand over to Goddess Athena to clean, she had been cursing and swearing crazily, and said a lot. The future head maid is not me. Ye. If that's the case, then I'll train the future head maid. Heh. How can my student be defeated by such a vulgar woman? Miss Eleanor suddenly covered her mouth and laughed. She beautifully turned around and beautifully disappeared. The moment she was thrown into the trial-taker's maze, the black shadows that sealed Nero's body were immediately broken. Nero, who had regained her freedom, nimbly turned around in the air and nimbly landed on the ground. She was no longer crawling like a dog. She rubbed her wrist and casually looked at her surroundings. Although Miss Eleanor's last words were still ringing in her ears, Nero pursed her lips, obviously not believing it. However, since Eleanor sent her to this place, there must be something here. While she was thinking to herself, Nero felt as though something was shooting at her from behind. She instinctively reached out to catch it. When that thing entered her hand, Nero's expression became strange. This thing was the remote control that brought her to this spacetime. To be precise, it was old Ha's remote control. This thing. Nero held the remote control in her hand. After a moment of silence, she gritted her teeth and said, It's really hot. However, she came here through the remote control, and it seemed that there was no possibility of returning through it. To hide this thing, the safest place was naturally to carry it with her. Without saying anything, Nero opened her mouth and swallowed this thing into her body. Activate? The moment she caught the remote control, she immediately pressed a few buttons, but there was no response. The shop owner here said that it needs to be recharged. Where do I get the energy? While she was thinking, there were suddenly people in front of her. Furthermore, they were women walking in 2s and 3s, or rather, they walked out from inside. Nero lowered her head and muttered to herself. The muscles on her face began to twist, and in the next moment, she changed into another appearance and mingled with the women who walked out. They did not completely leave this place, but at the exit, they found a place to rest and discuss. The battle for the holy garment, the loser, 12 zodiacs, gold, silver, holy realm. Nero hid in the corner, silently listening to the discussion of these female warriors, who were eliminated because of the failure of the challenge. She blinked again and again, as if she had encountered something incredible. Holy Seiya? I know it. It's drawn by Uncle Che Tian. I've seen it before, as a BL comic. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion at the entrance. 2 men wearing gold holy garments slowly walked in. The female warriors around saw this and quickly kept quiet. Gold needed to be respected, so they restrained themselves. It's the masters of the Scorpio Temple and the Taurus Temple. Why are they here? Small town. On the bell, Miss Maid, who was holding Boss Luo's palm and obtained the ability to peek at all the changes in time and space, suddenly had a strange look in her eyes, and even a strange expression flashed across her face. What happened? Boss Luo was thoughtful. Miss Maid shook her head and said in a low voice, I just suddenly remembered something. Well, it's like something suddenly appeared in my mind. Memory? Boss Luo lowered his head and pondered. What memory? Miss Maid opened her mouth, but she never hid anything from her master. At this time, she had to bite her lips and whispered, some plot, postures and things like that. Plot and postures? The words that came out of nowhere made Boss Luo stunned, but he didn't pay too much attention to it. Because at this time, in his unique vision, the changes in time and space had become more and more intense. Miss Maid was also attracted by the changes in time and space. But in her memory, some strange scenes still emerged from time to time. Do you know, as a qualified maid, in addition to managing the master's daily life, it's also very important to take care of the master's body. You don't need the shop owner now, but in the future you must remember that you are the best. In the past, did I really learn these things? At a loss. ######### PS. 1880 seconds. Chapter 1642. The gold of the Taurus Palace was Lord Aruba, and the gold of the Scorpio Palace was Lord Romy. The names of the 12 gold had spread far and wide. When the 2 gold appeared at the same time, the female warriors who had failed the challenge of the Grus constellation Saint Cloth were all silent. At this time, Aruba of the Taurus Palace said loudly, Challengers who have come out, leave quickly. Now walk past me. There will be people outside to receive you. As for why they had to walk past Lord Aruba, although the challengers found it strange, they did not ask. Lowering their heads, the female warriors walked past Aruba one by one and then walked out of the trial maze. After a while, most of the female warriors had left. Why are you still here? Aruba noticed that there was still a female warrior in the corner who had not moved, so he asked in a rough voice. The female warrior who was sitting casually in the corner was Nero, but she did not look at Aruba. Instead, she kept looking at the gold of the Scorpio Palace. Lord Romy of the Scorpio Palace. Prince Poulin naturally noticed the gaze that fell on him. However, he thought that even the gods of Mount Pantheon would not be able to see through the disguise of a treasure of the underworld, so he was not afraid at all. She was just a female warrior who had been eliminated in the challenge. But that gaze caused him to faintly feel apprehensive. It seemed to be some kind of familiar gaze. This female warrior was thinking of some bad ideas. That's Romy. Prince Poulin's mind at this moment, like an instinct, like an intuition, came suddenly. I think I can still challenge again. Nero, who had transformed into a female warrior, stood up, put her hands on her waist, and then twisted her waist. You can. Gold Lord. What? Aruba was stunned. He frowned and said, Nonsense. You have already failed and failed in the challenge. Why do you want to challenge again? But the rules did not say that I can't continue after failing? Nero said with a smile, Since there is no rule, why can't I continue to challenge? At this time, the Gold Lord of the Taurus Palace was stunned, but he did not scold her. Instead, he walked to Romy and lowered his voice. You can do this? Romy thought for a moment and said, since she wants to challenge again, let her challenge again. In the rules, there is indeed no such thing as not being allowed to challenge if one fails. This is unfair to the other challengers who leave. Aruba frowned. Luomi said indifferently, if she can become the final victor, if you don't let her go, it means you are giving up on the successor of Heavenly Crane constellation. If she still fails, then naturally nothing will happen. Just let her give up on this idea. All right. Aruba nodded and immediately looked at Nero. Okay, you can go in, but only this time. If you fail again, leave immediately. Thank you, Master Aruba. Nero's eyes lit up and squinted. I will give you a special service duck later. That voice is so disgusting. Aruba suddenly shuddered. He quickly waved his hand and ushered them into the arena. Nero flashed into the first area of the trial maze. Now only Miro and Aruba were left. Aruba thought for a while and said, we have already informed the rest of the gold members about the Dark Saya. What do you plan to do next? Luomi asked directly, what about you? Regarding the Heavenly Crane constellation Saint Cloth, Mu Sha is enough. I am superfluous. Aruba shook his head and said, I will go back and practice. You should go and patrol. Maybe there are other Dark Saya in hiding. Luomi said. Aruba did not care and said, you don't know how powerful Mu Sha's seventh sense is? He could see through all falsehoods. It's fine if he doesn't know. But since he knows about the Dark Saya, he should have sensed it thoroughly. Even if there are other Dark Saya in hiding, he might have secretly subdued them. Luomi did not say anything. Even in the underworld, Mu Sha of the Virgo Temple had a reputation that made people afraid. And it was a personal evaluation by the King of Hell. He was the man closest to God. All right then. Luomi nodded in the end. You go back. I will stay here. I want to see who is the successor of Heavenly Crane constellation. Aruba shrugged and said, you will know sooner or later. I will wait for you at the temple. He strode out of the maze, but at this moment, Luomi suddenly called him from behind. Aruba subconsciously turned around without any defense. Then, a pitch-black dagger directly pierced his forehead. Prince Pu Lin withdrew his dagger, and the Taurus Palace's gold silently fell down. There was even a look of disbelief on his face. The Taurus constellation's gold saint robe suddenly dimmed, as if it was crying out in grief. Prince Pulin cut his wrist again, dripping blood. Then, Aruba stood up strangely. Go back and practice. Prince Pulin said softly, when the temple bell rings, wait for me in front of the temple. Aruba did not say a word. He turned around and left. His movements went from stiff to natural. When he walked out of the maze, he was back to normal. Ayaya? I seem to have discovered something incredible. A mischievous laughter came. Prince Pulin turned around instantly. His eyes focused. The cloak of the gold saint cloth was still spinning, and a ghost-like figure suddenly attacked. Prince Pulin retreated instantly. But the other party did not intend to take a step further. She just stopped in place and made an exaggerated expression. What did I see? The master of the Scorpio Temple killed the master of the Taurus Temple, and then he came back. She bit her finger in a panic. Her whole body trembled like a patient who had a seizure. Oh no. I'm going to die. I will definitely be killed. What should I do? What should I do? Save me. Help. The harsh voice echoed at the entrance. Prince Pulin was expressionless. At the same time, the black dagger in his hand stabbed forward quickly. But he suddenly stopped. Because of the female warrior. Nero suddenly quieted down at this time. She blinked and said, I want to join. Prince Pulin was very surprised, so much so that even his movements had unwittingly stopped. He sized up the female warrior in front of him. He could confirm that apart from him and the captured majestic star, there was no one else who had come to the sacred domain this time. This female warrior was not from the sacred domain? It was impossible for the goddess's warrior to see the Taurus gold being killed without doing anything. Could it be she was from the Sea King's side? Join? Prince Pulin took back his dagger and shook his head. You don't know what I am going to do. The female warrior giggled. But what I am most worried about is that you will not do anything. I have been too bored recently. I always wanted to find something to do, and I just happened to meet you. Even if I am going to assassinate the one in the temple, you will still follow. Prince Pulin looked at the pile of things with a smile. The silent death energy began to gather from all directions and was about to devour the other party. But he needed to solve this matter as quickly as possible. The legendary Virgo Moose's seventh sense was indeed quite terrifying. But in front of the death power, the female warrior was not affected at all. That was a power that could make everything wither. Even stones would be eroded and shattered by death. His Highness couldn't help but be shocked. Since mastering the death power, this was the first time he encountered such a thing. Even the god race on the battlefield of gods could only use powerful divine power to offset the erosion of death. But the other party seemed to have no life at all. Nero looked at the ground and the shadows surrounding her. She said casually, "You can kill me, but my life is somewhere else. You can't take it away." "Ah. Can't take it away." If it weren't for the fact that she didn't want to be exposed, the death power would not be only at this level. The Prince of Underworld disagreed in his heart, but such a familiar feeling, but he couldn't remember. Prince Pulin was silent. The death power should not be released for too long. He could only wave his hand to disperse the death power and replace it with the powerful fighting spirit of the Scorpio Temple. Of course, it was only a normal level of fighting spirit. "Sir, you seem to have a lot of good things on you?" Nero blinked and thought about whether to rob the other party or not. But she was more interested in the other party's true face, especially after the other party's sneak attacked Aruba of the Taurus constellation. This era seemed to be getting more and more interesting. It was better than going back to copybooks as punishment. That was not something a human could do. "I'm serious. My target is the goddess who descended from the temple," Prince Pulin said again. "The goddess." Nero thought for a while, then said innocently, "I haven't killed a goddess yet. Sir, can you take me to fly? I haven't done anything for a long time. I'll give you special service later." "You can follow me," Prince Pulin suddenly said. Nero was overjoyed. If not for the fact that he was not her family member, she would have pounced on him and taken advantage of him. She would often hug Taisetsu's thigh and say that she was pitiful with snot and tears. Was she really happy? Prince Pulin was stunned. The other party's eyes were as bright as a child's, which was really hard to understand. "What's your name?" "Shaji." Nero rolled her eyes and said with a smile. Prince Pulin nodded and walked directly into the depths of the maze. "Follow me." Lamia's did not go far on the ice field. She just found a place that looked okay, dug a hole in the snow, and buried herself in it to preserve her body temperature. The temperature here was terrifyingly low. Even if she had awakened the power seed, staying here for a long time would still be dangerous. Even if she was inexplicably involved in the final battle, ice field, Lamia still did not intend to fight for the Grus constellation's Saint Cloth. At most, she would just hide here and wait for the challenge to end. She did not believe that the Virgo Temple's gold would be able to dig her out in front of everyone and let the other challengers beat her to death. This feeling? Lamia's, who was silently counting the time, had a slight change in expression. It's getting stronger. Could it be? Not only did the other party not go far, but they are also getting closer? The person I'm looking for, could it be that he also entered the maze of the challengers? This discovery made Lamia surprised and happy. She felt that maybe her bad luck had run out and she finally got the attention of the goddess of luck. If that was the case, she could not be buried in the snow forever. Just as she was about to dig her way out on the snow, there was suddenly a sound of footsteps. Ever since Lamia's had obtained battle sense, Even her hearing was far better than ordinary people. She slowly took in a deep breath, then stopped breathing, and her footsteps came to a stop. Not just one, there should be two. Lamias could not see, but she could vaguely hear the voices of the other party talking. It was not the voice of Sister Suya. These two people seemed to be the reserve Silver Saint Seiya trained by the sanctuary itself. They were the most popular contestants in the sanctuary. They seemed to be tracking. Sister Suya? That woman is gone. One of the female warriors from the sanctuary said in a deep voice. She obviously escaped in this direction. Unfortunately, the wind and snow have buried her footprint. She is injured, she can't run far. The other female warrior from the sanctuary quickly said, there is no support or supplies here. After she is injured, her strength will be greatly reduced. No matter which side she meets, there is no possibility of resistance. But, why does she know the secret swordsmanship of the sanctuary? And it doesn't look like she just learned it. Maybe she is the descendant of those warriors who left the sanctuary and wandered outside. Similar things have happened before, so there is nothing strange. She appeared, she is behind. What? You? A figure flew out and spat out a mouthful of blood. Finally, she fell on the snow with a pale face. She was seriously injured. A few of her ribs were even broken. Sorry, I am more suitable for the heavenly crane constellation Saint Cloth than you. Even if it is a fair fight, you are not my opponent. But I need to conserve my strength. You! Damn it! To think that I treated you so well. The small boat of friendship capsized. The female warrior who was ambushed was secretly angry and sad. God knows what they did on the small boat of friendship. Bless me! After I inherit the heavenly crane constellation Saint Cloth, I will think of a way to help you get a bronze Saint Cloth. You better not move. Later on, the silver master who is guarding here, or even the gold master, should send you out. At this moment, a figure slowly walked out from the wind and snow. Wearing a mask and close-fitting silver armor, the powerful fighting spirit made the two female warriors in the snow feel unusually heavy pressure. The female warrior who launched the ambush quickly said, Master, she has lost the ability to challenge. I hope you can send her out safely. Just that. Looking at the silver in front of her, the female warrior was puzzled. In the sacred region, not to mention the female silver, even among the Saint Seiyas, there were very few females. Why did this woman's silver armor look so unfamiliar? Send her to me. The female silver in the wind and snow said slowly. Her voice was low, accompanied by the sound of the wind and snow. It was unusually mournful. The female warrior nodded, turned around, and walked in front of her companion who was looking at her with resentment. She lowered her head and was about to say something. Then, a huge force blasted her back, knocking her to the ground. Master! Master? The female warrior who was hit looked at the silver in disbelief, and spat out another mouthful of blood. I have never said that I am the silver of the sacred region. She slowly took off the mask on her face and smiled. But wait, I might be. This is Big Sister Suya? Lamia's heart couldn't help but jump. She recognized this time. This is the voice of Big Sister Suya. ######## PS. Today's physical strength is weak. Chapter 1643. Facing Big Sister Suya, who was standing on the snow, Lamias did not dare to move recklessly. What she was afraid of, it would happen. She felt that the snow that she was hiding in was welcoming a pressure. Big Sister Suya had already walked to where she was hiding. A sense of danger surged in her heart. Lamias instinctively broke through the snow that was buried on her body. At the same time, a sharp sword was thrusting downwards. Lamias was frightened. If she hesitated for a moment, she would not be able to avoid the sword. This also proved one thing: Big Sister Suya had already discovered her. The two female warriors followed Big Sister Suya to this place. When she arrived, she did not notice anyone. That could only mean that big sister Su-ya had arrived earlier than her. Su-ya's elder sister had even seen clearly how she had buried herself in the snow. That was close to be acquainted. Lamia's quickly adjusted her posture. Big sister Su-ya, you really don't care if I am an acquaintance. Don't you come earlier than I expected. Big sister Su-ya held her sword and seemed to have dispelled the intention to continue. Maybe it is luck, or maybe I have underestimated you. Luck, Lamia said quickly. At the same time, she looked at big sister Su-ya suspiciously. Silver? Big sister Su-ya was a silver. The two female warriors naturally did not have the possibility to resist. But if big sister Su-ya was a silver, why would she need to be followed by the two female warriors? With his silver ability, there was no opponent in this challenge. He could completely sweep his way through. Big sister Su-ya didn't need to hold him back and let him consume the strength of the other challengers in the final ice field. But these were not important. The key was, Big sister Su-ya, since you are already a silver, there is no need to participate in the fight for the heavenly crane constellation Saint Cloth. This was what Lamias could not understand. There were many bronze warriors, but relatively few silver warriors. Every silver warrior in the sacred Saint Galaxy had a record. They knew everything. Why would the sacred Saint Galaxy let a silver warrior mix in with the challengers? Impossible. What's more, big sister Su-ya came out of the Pegasus camp with her. How could a silver rank hide among a group of female warriors who feed the Pegasus? At this time, facing Lamia's question, sister Su-ya just smiled casually. But Lamias felt like she was being stared at by a poisonous snake. Unexpectedly, Lamias took a deep breath at this time and said in a low voice, "You are not a silver. The holy garment you're wearing might be fake." Su-ya's eldest sister said indifferently, "How do you know?" Lamias said, "You can't be a silver. Otherwise, the sanctuary wouldn't have put you in the challenger's maze. You can't be a silver saint, otherwise, the gold and silver saints monitoring this battle would have acted immediately. Since the purpose of this challenge is to obtain the silver saint cloth from Grus constellation, then the sacred Saint Galaxy will definitely not allow such unfair behavior. So, you're a fake," Lamias said with certainty. "The storage of the holy garment requires the holy garment chest. You were with me the whole time, but I didn't see you carrying the holy garment chest at all. There's nothing wrong with the previous reasons." Su-ya's eldest sister shook her head and said, "But who told you that the holy garment must be placed in the holy garment chest? Only bronze saints will carry the chest everywhere. Silver saints and above, the holy garment has already fused with the user, don't you know?" "Don't know. Alright, if there's a chance to go back to the Pegasus barracks, I will prepare more energy herbs for Nimitz." Ice field, on the high ground, a few pairs of eyes were watching the scene on the snow. Among them was Mu Sha from Virgo Temple. The other few silver saints. "Master Mu Sha, what she's wearing is really a silver saint cloth." A silver saint said in surprise, "When did the sanctuary have such a silver saint?" Mu Sha frowned at first, then pondered. A few silver saints were also pondering. The reason why they could still be so calm was purely because Su-ya's eldest sister did not kill the female warriors, and only defeated them. If not to mention Mu Sha, the silver saints would have already taken action, or were on the way to take action. "She's not a real silver saint," Mu Sha said indifferently. "That's also not a silver saint cloth, at most it's just a silver white armor. That kind of silver aura is simulated by her fighting spirit. Currently, her fighting spirit is rapidly depleting." Fighting spirit simulation? The silver saints were shocked. "How is that possible?" "No, it's possible," Mu Sha suddenly said. "There's one person who might be able to do it." "Who?" "Jack," Mu Sha said slowly. "He might be able to. The holy battle technique, Phantom Fist, that he developed himself can produce a similar simulation effect. From her, I can feel the same energy fluctuation as when Jack used the Phantom Demon Fist back then. Jack. A few Silver Saints were shocked at the same time. This Jack was too famous in the upper middle class of the sanctuary. In the past, Jack once competed with the current Gemini Temple for the Gemini Gold Saint Cloth. The two fought until the end, and it was hard to determine the winner. In the end, the goddess sent down the sanctuary and set the current Gemini Gold Saint Cloth as the winner. The reason was that Jack had tarnished the glory of the Saint Seiya, and privately learned the Underworld Gladiator's Underworld Battle Technique and the Ocean Gladiator's Ocean Battle Technique. He was unscrupulous in order to win. In the end, Jack was removed from the sanctuary, and after his fighting spirit was abolished, he was expelled. Could this Suya be Jack's descendant or student? It's possible, otherwise Suya will definitely not use Phantom Fist. Master Mu Sha. Since Suya is the descendant of the Sinner Jack, she is no longer qualified to participate in this challenge. Please let me take action and capture Suya. Mu Sha stood in front of everyone, and her eyes were looking at Lamia's. The Silver Saints did not know what the Virgo Temple's master was looking at, so they were impatient. No need. Mu Sha said at this time, although Jack has been expelled, it is only limited to himself. Even if it is his descendant, she should not lose the qualification to become a Saint Seiya because of this. What's more, she came to the sanctuary through the proper way. She is qualified to participate in the challenge. But Master Mu Sha, Mu Sha turned back casually and said with a calm gaze, just now, one of the two female warriors who were knocked down is your student, right? I am not. The Silver Saints were shocked and quickly lowered their heads. Mu Sha said indifferently at this time, the challenge continues. The Holy Garment has the ability to choose its master. You have experienced this. Even if meditation technique can improve the possibility of compatibility, it is only an improvement. If the Holy Garment does not like it, it will naturally refuse. You all can leave. Yes. He was the chief among the Gold Saints, the most powerful man under the goddess. In all aspects, the Silver Saints did not have the courage to resist. They could only bow their heads and leave. Ice Field. Not only this area, there were also battles between challengers in other places. After everyone left, Mu Sha continued to look at Lamia's and big sister Suya on the snow. You said you can't suffer. A smile suddenly appeared at the corner of Mu Sha's mouth. But now, it's not a matter of eating or not. Achoo! Nero sneezed loudly, then she shivered and hugged her hands tightly. Two slender ice crystals were hanging on her nose at this time. Would she be afraid of the cold? Prince Pulin obviously didn't believe it, so he looked at her coldly. He looked at her coldly along the way, but she never cared. She just played by herself. Yes, like playing. In fact, I hate this kind of map the most. It reminds me of some unpleasant memories. Nero looked at Prince Pulin, who had transformed into Master Romi of the Scorpio Temple at this time, and said seriously, "This is my childhood shadow. Is it?" Prince Pulin responded perfunctorily. At the same time, he looked around. He could feel that there was a powerful existence in this ice field. In the air, there was even a faint fluctuation of power. It might be the Gold Seats chief. Mu Sha had never appeared on the battlefield of the gods in this war. He had always been guarding the Holy Land. Even in the battlefield of the human world, he had never made a move. However, the Underworld's execution organization of the human camp had never succeeded in attacking the Holy Land. The Pantheon Mountain hoped to end the war in the human world as soon as possible, and so did the Underworld. Therefore, Prince Pulin's action this time. This was something that Prince Pulin had to do for the sake of something that was about to happen to him. He needed a higher reputation and prestige to be able to inherit the glory of the Netherworld King. Really? Nero shivered again at this time. I was trapped in the ice and snow for a training. For half a year, I was drinking snow water. Sometimes when I was hungry, I could only chew a few pieces of ice. So I especially hate eating ice cubes. When I buy happy drinks, it's always non-ice. But ice cream is different because it has flavor. I especially like to eat it. Ice cream? Prince Poulin suddenly stopped, frowned faintly, and whispered, "Ice cream? Haven't you eaten it before? I'll treat you to ice cream?" Nero blinked her eyes that seemed to be able to shoot out starlight. "I'll fight with you. I can beat Uncle Whitebeard's ice cream 10 times every time." Prince Poulin shook his head. He subconsciously felt that this female warrior named Shaji began to talk nonsense again, but he seemed to be able to understand. A trace of confusion appeared in his heart, but it was quickly diluted by the power of death. Prince Poulin shook his head at this time, pointed to the front and said, "There are a few challengers for the holy garment there. Go and defeat them." "Why me?" Nero pointed to herself and asked curiously. "Didn't you say that you want to cause trouble?" Prince Poulin said indifferently, "Then, why don't you try to fight for the Grus holy garment? If you can become the winner of this challenge, you may be able to meet the goddess of the Holy Land directly." Nero blinked quickly and didn't say anything. Prince Poulin didn't mind either. His thoughts were all focused on this mysterious girl, but her heart, which was hidden in her irrelevant words, was like a labyrinth from beginning to end. It was a spirit labyrinth that was even more enormous than this trial-taker's labyrinth. "I have to go back eventually," Nero muttered at this time. "How about I do a big job and go back?" In the midst of his astonishment, Nero took a step forward. Her speed was so fast that even Prince Poulin couldn't help but be somewhat surprised. "Then me too." Prince Poulin sighed and looked in the direction of the huge wave. "Let's see the golden chief of the Holy Land." The girl called herself Shaji. This was probably not her real name. Prince Poulin had this feeling that he had met such a person before, full of lies. As for whether Shaji would expose him in the future, Prince Poulin didn't think about it because she wouldn't. Prince Poulin had this feeling. It was very strange. On the snowy ground, Sister Suya and Lamias were still in a stalemate. No one moved first. Suddenly, Lamias made a move that surprised Sister Suya. She dropped her hands naturally at this time, completely giving up the fight. Sister Suya's eyes flashed with doubts. "You can do it." Lamias looked at Suya at this time and said expressionlessly, "I won't fight back. After you defeat me, I will lose the qualification to challenge. I won't be your obstacle, but don't hit too hard." Sister Suya was originally puzzled, but now she was bewildered. Lamias was too abnormal at this time, so she couldn't judge what Lamias was planning. "Really, I don't have any ideas," Lamias said with a serious face. "There is no trap, and this is not a conspiracy. I really want to give up this challenge, so you should defeat me quickly. Don't waste time with me." Sister Suya didn't move. There must be something wrong with this abnormality. She concluded that Lamias must have some special plans. What kind of plans did she have? It was just that the feeling in her heart was getting stronger. She even felt that the person she needed to find had entered the ice field and might be nearby. The hope of leaving was close at hand. How could she have time to tangle with Sister Suya? "Okay. Since you don't want to fight, then I won't be polite." Lamias directly broke out the fighting spirit in her body at this time. Her fighting spirit was actually just a beginner. Naturally, she didn't have any profound means. It was as if she suddenly had a body of divine power, and at this time she just waved it randomly. But the strength of the fist was real. Seeing Lamias's fist, Sister Suya didn't remain indifferent and instantly responded. But Lamias suddenly withdrew her fist at this time, and actually hit her fist with her face. Face against fist? No one would use such a fighting method. Sister Suya suddenly sneered and dodged at once. Then she sneered, "Lami, it seems that you want to use the fighting method of perishing together with your injury, to exchange for my injury, right? I really underestimated you. You are really a ruthless guy. You can even be so ruthless to yourself. Lamia's didn't say anything. This sister Suya's imagination was a little too good. She really only wanted to receive a punch on her face, and then fall to the ground and not get up, directly admitting defeat. That Virgo Gold, she didn't know where he was hiding, secretly peeping at her. Lamia's couldn't help but sigh. It seemed that she could only fight seriously with this sister Suya and then lose. Anyway, she knew that she really couldn't win Sister Suya. Even if her strength was doubled, she still couldn't win. Chapter 1644. Lamia's did not know that if she were to go all out, to what extent would she be able to fight with Big Sister Suya, she thought. Even if she could not defeat her opponent, it would not end in an instant. Virgo Temple's Mu Sha was definitely watching from an unknown place. He obviously did not want her to be so perfunctory. Speaking of which, her power seed was awakened with the help of Virgo Temple's gold rank. If she were to be in his position, if she were to give a stranger an opportunity, she would not be willing to let the other party be mediocre. Then Mu Sha's unyielding way to let her continue the challenge seemed to be justifiable, however, since she had already decided to go all out to fight with Big Sister Suya. Lamia's quickly adjusted her mood. But in reality, the matters of the world could easily exceed her expectations. Lamia's pulled out her sword, and Big Sister Suya also pulled out her sword. Their swords instantly slashed together, but at this moment, a third sword suddenly slashed in the middle of their swords. The huge force instantly pushed Lamia's and Big Sister Suya away at the same time, and on the snow, there was an additional petite figure. Lamia's and Big Sister Suya were shocked at the same time, but this was the ice field in the final region, where everyone was challenging the heavenly crane constellation St. Cloth. For a new challenger to appear, it was not unreasonable. Just that the other party did not choose to wait for Lamia's and Big Sister Suya to decide the winner before catching the cicada. Instead, she directly joined in, which seemed to be very unconventional. The snowstorm had already weakened. Lamia's and Big Sister Suya, who had stopped, suddenly saw that behind the female warrior who suddenly appeared, there was actually a long rope, and this rope was trapping 7 female warriors. This petite female warrior, after defeating the 7 female warriors, actually tied them up and dragged them all the way? "Hello, both of you!" The petite female warrior squinted her eyes and looked left and right at Big Sister Suya and Lamia's. She giggled and said, "Are you guys going to surrender, or should I beat you until you surrender?" This female warrior who suddenly appeared seemed to be very strong. Looking at her battle record, it was obvious. Lamia's almost had the impulse to shout out surrender, if not for her misgivings about Mu Sha's expression. Suya's elder sister remained silent. The petite female warrior shrugged her shoulders. "I think I already know the answer. Come on, you two trash, come at me together. I won't kill you. I always know when to stop." Lamia's didn't move, but Suya did. She moved like a fleeing rabbit. Her speed was extremely fast. Compared to when she fought with her, she was even faster. Lamia's couldn't help but be surprised. She knew that Suya seemed to have held back a lot just now. But at this moment, the petite female warrior turned her hand and slashed. Without even moving her feet, she had already slashed Big Sister Suya, who had launched a fierce attack. The shockwave even broke through the snow on the ground. After being split apart by the petite female warrior, Suya's elder sister instantly threw away the standard longsword in her hand the moment she landed on the ground. She straightened her legs and unleashed her battle will as she waved her fist again. The power of dozens of fist shadows was quite astonishing. But the petite female warrior sneezed and instantly broke through Suya's dozens of fist shadows. With a side kick, Suya's elder sister was kicked away. She was like a cross skipping on water. She rolled all the way on the snowy ground and finally hit a rock. After her body smashed the rock, she stopped. The petite female warrior's palm was placed on her forehead as she looked into the distance. Oh, full marks. How could she be so strong? Lamia's couldn't help but widen her eyes. At the same time, her heart was beating wildly. It's here, it's here. That strong feeling. Could it be that this petite female warrior is the one I'm looking for? Who is this person? I've never seen her in the sacred domain. Why is her strength so? On the peak of the snowy ground, the silver warriors were also shocked. They had already left Mu Sha's side and headed to other areas. But now they had returned once again. One of the silver warriors directly said, "Lord Mu Sha, this female warrior is extremely fast. She suddenly appeared on the ice field and instantly defeated the other seated contestant. Moreover, she dragged the losers all the way. We couldn't catch up with her." Later, this silver warrior's voice became lower and he even hesitated. A silver warrior was actually left far behind by an ordinary female warrior. This wasn't something to be happy about. "She's called Saori." A low voice was heard. After that, a golden light flashed and appeared beside Mu Sha, who was sitting cross-legged. Seeing this, several silver warriors instantly lowered their heads and respectfully said, "Greetings, Lord Romi." The one who came to Mu Sha's side was none other than the gold warrior of the Scorpio Palace, Prince Pulin. Mu Sha was still sitting cross-legged. His cross-legged sitting was a kind of cultivation method. If he sat there, unless the goddess descended, no one would stand up. Everyone was already used to it. At this moment, Mu Sha casually glanced at Romi and slightly frowned. "You said, Saori?" Prince Pulin nodded. "Saori, a challenger from the Black Iron Castle. She happens to be in my jurisdiction. Of course, her strength is indeed beyond my expectations." The silver warriors didn't say anything. Since the gold warrior of the Scorpio Palace recognized her as a challenger, there was naturally no problem. Even if there was a problem, it wasn't their turn to speak. "Black Iron Castle." Mu Sha nodded and then thought for a while. Black Iron Castle is mostly the descendant of humans and giants. This female warrior didn't even use her fighting spirit. She could use her physical strength to break the fighting spirit. It seems that the giant bloodline gave her an innate advantage. "Perhaps," Prince Pulin said casually. "Along the way, she gave me a lot of surprises. But her personality is a bit strange. Her strength is tyrannical, but she might not be recognized by the Saint Cloth." "Everything depends on fate," Mu Sha said indifferently. "Fate will make the right choice. Let's just wait and see." At this time, Prince Pulin took a step forward and asked, "Mu Sha, what about the Dark Gladiator?" Mu Sha had already closed her eyes. The goddess already knows about this matter. The majestic star is temporarily staying in the temple. As for other matters, let's wait until the Saint Cloth contest is over. Prince Pulin was thinking. If he suddenly attacked here, he could directly kill this gold warrior. But after all, Mu Sha couldn't be compared to Aruba of the Taurus Palace. Just by getting close to Mu Sha, Prince Pulin faintly felt something that didn't belong to humans, divinity. This gold warrior of the Virgo Temple had already condensed her own divinity. Between her and the gods there was only one level difference. In terms of pure strength, perhaps she had already reached the same level? Perhaps this challenge match will end soon. Prince Plin nodded his head, but he hid all his intentions to attack Lin Fan from the bottom of his heart. There were too many legends about Mu Sha. The most powerful shield of the goddess, the guardian of the sanctuary, the most powerful human under the gods. Legend said that even if she didn't activate the Saint Cloth of the Virgo Temple, Mu Sha could still defeat any gold warrior. The petite female warrior. Nero, at this time, casually took the sword from the defeated female warrior and put it on her shoulder, looking at Lamia's. She suddenly exclaimed, and then in the blink of an eye, under the speed that Lamia's couldn't react, she was almost in front of Lamia's. Lamia's heart was beating fast at this time, as if her heart was going to spin out. She only felt that under the gaze of the other party, her brain was roaring loudly, and then her consciousness went blank. As if thousands of centuries had passed, Lamia's woke up from the chaos. She felt unprecedentedly weak. The feeling of being on the verge of death made her body's strength instantly drain. At the same time, Nero took a step back slightly, showing a strange expression. Not knowing if it was an illusion, Lamias only felt that there seemed to be a layer of colorful halo flashing in Nero's eyes. Lamias was too tired, even standing seemed to be her limit. She wanted to say something, but suddenly lost her voice. Her throat moved, but she couldn't say anything in the end. But the strong feeling in her heart had disappeared at this time. Lamias couldn't help but widen her eyes, not sure whether this petite and mysterious female warrior was the person she was looking for. Nero subconsciously shook her head, and then a trace of doubt flashed in her eyes. At this time, a strong wind came from behind Nero. Sister Suya. In the wind and snow, the strange silver armor on Sister Suya's body was broken at this time. The armor was full of cracks, as if it would fall off at any time, but her fighting spirit was stronger at this time. The fighting spirit was like a burning flame at this time, wrapping around Sister Suya's body. This time, Sister Suya only threw a punch, but Lamias, who was in front of the fist, saw that the fist was expanding crazily. That fist seemed to have expanded by hundreds of times in an instant. However, just the change in size from this perspective was enough to make one tremble in fear. Nero blinked. Before the huge fist arrived, she raised her foot. She used her foot to catch it, then raised her palm, turned it into a hand knife, and directly chopped down. Lamias only felt a breeze blowing, and the huge fist had disappeared. Sister Suya covered her arm at this time, her face was pale, and her body was even trembling. "Why are you so strong, even your fighting spirit?" Sister Suya's eyes were wavering at this moment. "I have developed illusory magic fist to a higher level than the teacher. For this challenge, I only need a chance to prove to." At this time, Nero reversed the long sword and used the sword hilt to directly burst into Sister Suya's mouth. Lamias clearly saw that Sister Suya's teeth were knocked out by the violent means in an instant. "Cruel. Are you annoying?" Nero yawned and picked her ears. "If you can't beat me, then you can't beat me. It's useless to say more. As your enemy, does the enemy know? The enemy has no interest in knowing what you're carrying. As for me, I just care about the pleasure of bullying you, understand? I'm bullying you now, understand?" She was probably bullied badly in the past? Lamias subconsciously had such an idea. Sister Suya's eyes gradually dimmed. Her silver armor shattered directly at this time, scattering like ice crystal dregs. Then, she fell to the ground and lost consciousness. Nero stepped forward, stepped on her casually, then looked at Lamias again, and suddenly said, "What did you do to me just now?" What did I do?" Lamias was shocked. The feeling of sudden disappearance made her unsure if the petite female warrior in front of her was the target she was looking for. Nero glanced at her suspiciously, then felt that such verbal questioning was too inefficient. While she was thinking about which more extreme interrogation method should be used, Lamias had already fallen to the ground. Nero was startled as if she didn't expect it. After Lamias experienced the strange spiritual changes just now, her spirit was close to the limit. In the end, she couldn't hold on and lost consciousness. This was the end of the battle on the snowy ground. No one would have thought that it would end up like this. On the ice cliff, Mu Sha, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly stood up. His expression didn't change, but his voice slowly reverberated throughout the entire ice field. "The Heavenly Crane Constellation Saint Cloth Challenge has ended. The final victor has been born." Following Mu Sha's voice, in front of Nero, there was suddenly a silver-white pillar of light. At the same time, a silver box slowly floated. "Go forward." Mu Sha's voice sounded again. This was obviously directed at Nero. "Touch the saint cloth. If you can match it, the Heavenly Crane Constellation Saint Cloth will belong to you." So, this challenge had really reached the end. Originally, it might have needed to experience a fierce battle, but it was a pity that Nero suddenly appeared, causing the rest of the seated contestants before Sister Suya and Lamius fell, they were already sent out by Nero. Now, in the entire trial maze, there was only one challenger left, Nero. She naturally became the final victor, and also successfully obtained the qualification to activate the heavenly crane constellation Saint Cloth. If she could finally successfully wear the heavenly crane constellation Saint Cloth, she would be a member of the silver ranks in the sacred region. Heavenly crane constellation? Nero blinked her eyes as if she had encountered something fun, and walked into the light pillar without saying anything. The group of silver ranks, at this moment, were slightly nervous as they watched this scene. They did not know if this strong challenger would be able to successfully match with the heavenly crane constellation's saint garment in the end. If not this selection, they were afraid that they would have to start all over again. Finally, under everyone's attention, Nero placed her palm on the silver Saint Cloth box. ############################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################### Chapter 1645. The Gold of the Scorpio Temple. Prince Pu Lin was also rather astonished as he watched this scene. He naturally knew more about the female warrior named Satsi than Mu Sha and the rest of the silver warriors, but it wasn't much more. However, Prince Pu Lin was certain that Sha Ji was definitely not from the sanctuary. Otherwise, how could she remain indifferent after seeing him kill Aruba of the Taurus Temple and even take the initiative to come over and seek to join them? However, Prince Pu Lin held a skeptical attitude towards the question of whether Sha Ji could inherit the heavenly crane constellation saint cloth. The reason why he could wear the Scorpio Temple's golden saint cloth was entirely because his blood had corroded the saint cloth. The gold saint cloth was jointly created by the goddess and the god Hephaestus. Only a stronger source of divine power could suppress the goddess power contained in the saint cloth. As the young master of the underworld and the successor of the next king of the underworld, the king of the underworld had already begun to transfer a portion of his divine power of death to the young master of the underworld before the start of this great battle. Furthermore, he had also instilled his own divine blood into Prince Pu Lin, giving Prince Pu Lin almost unlimited potential. The silver saint cloth was one grade lower than the gold saint cloth, but it was also personally created by the goddess and Hephaestus. Although it did not contain much divine power, it was almost impossible for a mortal to suppress it with brute force. No matter how weak the divine power was, it was still the power of the gods. In essence, it had already surpassed the limits of all human power. Therefore, the saint cloth had the initiative to choose the successor. Prince Pu Lin hoped that the heavenly crane constellation's sacred garment could be inherited smoothly. Only in this way would the goddess appear during the inheritance ceremony. Perhaps he could only wait for Sha Ji to fail and wait for the next challenge. This would inevitably delay the time by a lot. He could not help but frown because of this. At this time, the box of the saint cloth was slowly opened under the touch of Sha Ji. Nero. The saint cloth that represented the constellation Grus finally appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was a relatively simple set of women's armor. The entire body was shining with silver light. After looking at it, Nero reached out to touch the Grus saint cloth again. However, just as her fingers touched the corner of the saint cloth, her fingers were frozen. Nero blinked and seemed a little surprised. The holy garment is rejecting her. On the ice cliff, a silver-ranked warrior shook his head. She may be strong, but it's obvious that the holy garment doesn't favor her. Looks like we'll have to start a new challenge. Lord Mu Sha, the results are out. Another silver ranker sighed and said, "How do you think we should evaluate the qualifications for the second challenge?" Wait. Mu Sha waved his hand and said calmly, "It's not over yet. Let's watch." It's still not over? Didn't Grus Constellation's saint cloth reject? Wait, what happened? You can do that? His fingers were already frozen, and his fingers were completely connected to the holy robe. The cold air was even rising along his fingers. Seeing that other than his fingers, His entire palm was about to be completely frozen. Nero suddenly said, "I'll blow you up, okay?" The cold air released by the saint robe instantly surged. Nero sneered and pulled out a long black katana from his body. He casually knocked on the body of the holy robe twice. "Did you see that? This toy is called Yama Blade." Nero squinted his eyes and said, "This thing is very arrogant, like a lone wolf in the grassland. But once again I found out that it can also be scared, and scared to death. Do you know why?" The cold air of the holy garment rose again, as if it was disdainful. Nero didn't care. He held on to Yama Blade and knocked it twice again. "Trash blade, tell it why you're so scared. If you say too little, I'll melt you and make you into a toilet bowl." The sound of the blade seemed to be saying something. As for what it was saying, only a ghost would laugh. The cold air of the Grus constellation holy garment suddenly weakened. But in an instant the cold air exploded again, as if it was about to perish together. On the snowy ground, the temperature suddenly dropped again. Sister Suya, Lamias, and the rest of the female warriors who fell on the ground were suddenly covered with a layer of frost. "Trash blade!" Nero threw Yama Blade to the ground in disgust. "What do I need you for? You can't even scare me with a broken holy garment. Looks like I still have to do it myself." Ignoring the changes of Yama Blade after it was thrown to the ground, Nero directly reached out his hands and grabbed the joints of the holy garment. Like breaking a lotus root, he actually broke the holy garment's gauntlet and then roughly stuffed it into his arms. The holy garment seemed to be crying, but this was just the beginning. Pieces of the holy garment were forcefully peeled off by Nero and then put on. The surrounding wind was strong, and the cold air was like a substance, but the holy garment was being peeled off more and more. Finally, Nero grabbed the helmet of the holy garment with both hands and put it on his head. But the holy garment that had become one body directly froze itself, and even Nero was frozen inside. Nero wasn't afraid. He struggled with both arms and walked out of the ice crystal. The holy garment was unwilling to give up, and continued to release extreme cold air, but it was easily broken by Nero again and again. In this way, the holy garment and Nero were frozen again and again, breaking out of the ice, freezing, and breaking out of the ice state. In the end, the holy garment no longer released cold air, and the silver light on its body instantly dimmed. It actually turned directly into the appearance of a stone. Nero was dumbfounded. He didn't expect the holy garment to be more unyielding than Yama Blade. He couldn't help but be stunned. The silver figures in the distance. Even Prince Pulin was somewhat dumbfounded at this time. Even Mu Sha of Virgo Temple opened his mouth slightly. This guy, actually forced the holy garment to seal itself? A silver figure subconsciously swallowed his saliva. Doesn't this mean that the divine power contained in the holy garment is also helpless and can't break free? At this moment, an even more unbelievable scene happened. The heavenly crane constellation holy garment that had sealed itself suddenly burst out a strong silver light. Under the silver light, the petrification of the holy garment had been removed, and it once again returned to the bright appearance of the holy garment. This time, not only did the holy garment of heavenly crane constellation not burst out cold air to reject, it even restrained the surrounding cold air. Nero swung her arm and found that the movement was incomparably natural. There was no obstruction at all. She casually punched out a fist that contained a burst of cold air. On the snowy ground, a trace of ice instantly spread out and only stopped after 10 meters away. Nero seemed to have gotten a new toy. She wantonly squandered the power of the holy garment on the snowy ground, extremely happy. On the ice cliff, everyone was silent again. After a long time, Mu Sha slowly exhaled. His voice seemed to be a little tired. "Looks like the holy garment of heavenly crane constellation has been tamed. She is the new silver of heavenly crane constellation. This battle of the holy garment ends here." Tamed. It was the first time the silver figures knew that the holy garment of heavenly crane constellation could be tamed. But this was said by the strongest under the gods, Chief Mu Sha, so it should be right? Draw up the inheritance ceremony and report to Virgo Temple. Master Mu Sha left just like that. They knew that the previous master of Heavenly Crane Constellation, Maya, was Master Mu Sha's sister. He was especially concerned about the inheritance of the holy garment of Heavenly Crane Constellation. Although Master Mu Sha did not show any dissatisfaction, but thinking about it, Master Mu Sha was not willing to see his sister's holy garment to be inherited in such a crude manner. In short, the battle of the holy garment, along with the compromise of the holy garment of Heavenly Crane Constellation, had indeed ended. Who is going to bring those female warriors away? If they are not brought away, they will freeze to death. I will go. I will go too. A few silver figures rushed out of the ice cliff. Congratulations! Prince Pulin came in front of Nero at this time. But Nero did not say anything and punched out. The fist that was filled with cold air directly hit the Scorpio holy garment on Prince Pulin's body. Cancel. The Prince of Underworld did not move. On the surface of the Scorpio holy garment, there was only a ripple. Nero suddenly said seriously, "My holy garment is too trashy, why don't we exchange? If you want, I can give it to you." Prince Pulin said indifferently, "But there is a condition. When I leave the Holy Realm, you need to leave with me." "Is it fun?" Nero thought for a while and asked. Prince Pulin smiled but didn't say anything. His figure gradually disappeared in the wind and snow. Nero, on the other hand, suddenly sat down on the snowy ground as if she was bored. She spat out the remote control in her body and pressed it a few times. "I know. Eleanor, that coquettish bitch, must be lying to me. This thing is fake." Nero looked up at the sky of the labyrinth, ice field, and raised her third finger. At this time, a thunderbolt suddenly struck down. Nero was startled and quickly jumped up. She looked around suspiciously. Just as she was about to say something, another thunderbolt struck down. Nero's thoughts turned quickly, and she ran away in the blink of an eye. On the ice field. On another ice cliff, the figure in black and white maid costume also disappeared at this time. The battle for the Grus constellation holy garment had ended. A new Grus constellation silver had been born. The news almost spread in the entire holy realm at a terrifying speed. Soon, it would even spread to the human countries of the allied forces of the god. This would be a good news to the human countries of the allied forces of the god. The succession ceremony would be held at dawn tomorrow. The intention of using this time was that dawn was coming, and the darkness would be dispelled. The battle for the holy garment had ended. Some were happy and some were sad. Those seeded players who had been trained by the Holy Realm could only leave in disappointment. They needed more time to train and wait quietly for the next battle for the Holy Garment. Perhaps it would be soon. After all, it was now the time of war between the gods. Bronze and silver might soon fall. Even gold had the possibility of falling at any time in this vast war between the heavens and the earth, wasn't it? In a guest house in the Holy Realm, this was a place for challengers from all over to stay temporarily. At this time, there were not many challengers in the guest house. Most of them had left quickly after the battle for the Holy Garment had ended and returned to their respective battlefields. The war situation in the human countries was still tense. If not, they would probably stay until the succession ceremony ended. Su Ya's eldest sister was currently in her own room, packing her luggage. Her right arm was already broken, so she could only wrap it in gauze and hang it around her neck. It was quite inconvenient when she was packing her luggage. "Can I come in?" A man's voice suddenly sounded. Su Ya frowned. She did not have much impression of this voice. She only felt that it was unfamiliar. "Don't worry, I will finish packing and leave soon. I won't stay here and not leave." Su Ya's eldest sister thought for a while and replied. Her identity had actually been exposed in the ice field. Those silver, and even gold, had probably seen through her background. Now that they were looking for her, they probably had some thoughts of settling the score? I'm coming in. The person did not get the permission of Suya's eldest sister and directly pushed the door open. What surprised Suya was that the person who came to look for her was not the law enforcement team of the Holy Realm, but a gold. A gold from the Scorpio Temple. You are. Suya's face was full of shock. Master Romy? You actually came back to look for me? Your name is Suya. You came from the Pegasus camp at the front line. Jack, who is he to you? Romy? Prince Pulin suddenly asked at this time. Suya was silent for a moment before saying softly, he is my father. Prince Pulin stared at Suya for a moment before saying coldly, what about your mother? Why do you have the bloodline of the Banshee of the underworld in your body? Suya was shocked. She immediately put on a desperate fighting posture. Prince Pulin shook his head at this time. You can no longer inherit the Grus constellation holy garment. The battle suit you wore before should be a replica, right? But a replica is a replica after all. Compared to the real holy garment, it is still inferior. Are you mocking my stupidity? Scorpio Temple's Gold Lord. Suya looked at the man bathed in golden light with a sad expression. No. Prince Pulin shook his head. I just came to ask you if you are interested in becoming a dark gladiator. What? Chaos. That was a place located in chaos. A figure flashed over. At this time, Eleanor had already returned to the most familiar place. The place where she worked, the shop hidden in chaos, and came to the shop owner. At this time, the shop owner was sitting on the desk with the shop's account book in his hand. Eleanor rarely saw the shop owner look at the account book so confidently. At least, this seemed to be the first time since she became a maid of the shop. Master, Nero became the winner of the Grus constellation Holy Garment this time and successfully wore the Grus constellation Holy Garment. This. Eleanor hesitated. Do you think that it is ridiculous for a black soul envoy to inherit a mere silver holy garment? The shop owner closed the account book in his hand, raised his head, and looked at Eleanor calmly. I just think that this Nero's origin is too mysterious. Eleanor shook her head, then asked solemnly, is she really from the future? The shop owner did not speak. At this time, he closed his eyes and leaned back on the chair behind him. Eleanor did not dare to speak. This shop owner liked silence, and it was the kind of absolute silence. She could only silently stand at the side and wait for the shop owner's instructions. After a long time, the shop owner suddenly said in a low voice, he has come to my era. Master? Eleanor was suddenly shocked. She seemed to have realized what the shop owner was referring to by the shop owner, and at this time, Eleanor's body suddenly stiffened. She still silently stood at the side. It was just that her gaze and even her consciousness had completely stopped. At the same time, the other chair in front of the shop owner's desk slowly moved a person's seat. Finally, a figure slowly condensed on this chair. But it was not completely condensed. It was just a shadow, but one could barely see the shadow's appearance. Hello, this should be the second time I'm meeting you. Former shop owner. The voice reverberated in this ancient study. That was Luacio's voice. #######PS. I wrote a little too much, so it's late. Chapter 1646. They looked into each other's eyes for a long time. After a long time, a hint of appreciation flashed in the shop owner's eyes. The shop owner looked at Boss Luo and said, I can't ask for your name. Boss Luo smiled and said, I can't ask about your past either. The shop owner waved his hand, and Miss Eleanor, who was motionless beside him, was sent out of the study room. This would make the conversation more comfortable. The shopkeeper smiled at this time and said, That black soul envoy named Nero, you have planted a spiritual seed in her before, right? Using this connection, you sent back an ordinary person who is related to this era and stimulated the seed in Nero's body again. Then, your will descend. It's a very good method. I didn't think of this before. Boss Luo shook his head. It's a relatively successful attempt. The shop owner nodded. I've done similar things before. Unfortunately, my predecessor didn't seem to have the intention to cooperate with me. Boss Luo knew a lot from the simple words. He took over the shop from the shop owner in front of him, and the shop owner also took over the shop from his predecessor. We can't find the source of its inheritance. The shop owner clasped his hands at this moment and said, its existence is far more ancient than you think. Boss Luo had a lot of questions and didn't understand. He hoped to get the answers from the shop owner. This discussion wouldn't end in a short period of time. Why did you choose me? It seems that I'll really choose you later. The shop owner thought for a while and said, but I can't answer your question now. Because I haven't officially met you yet, I don't know what I'll think tomorrow. Naturally, I don't know the reason why I transferred the shop to you. Moreover, this is an inevitable result. Boss Luo was silent. This was indeed an inevitable result. If his arrival in this era allowed the shopkeeper to know about the future in advance, if the shopkeeper did not choose to hand over the shop, he might have disappeared now. If he could not become the shopkeeper, he would not have the power to come here and lose control. If this is how the future works under the Origin's control, then the part where I met you will be erased after you leave, shopkeeper replied. I will completely forget about this, but you won't after you return. Do you know why? Luoqiu thought for a moment and said, any question that I ask you can be answered by purchasing it from the altar. Therefore, in the future, I will only know about the past. In fact, I can't influence the past at all. As he spoke, Boss Luo waved his hand, but his palm passed through the table. In this era, he could not touch anything. Other than the shop owner. No one else could know of his arrival. No, you can still influence it somewhat. The shopkeeper shook his head and said, after all, there is a slight disorder in this time and space, but it is not caused by you. Or rather, it is not caused by the you in front of me. But it is also caused by you, a you that is more distant than the you in front of me. There is no doubt that you will be more powerful and wealthy, so you can do it. Do you know why I asked Athena to hold a war for the Grus sacred cloth? Luoqiu thought for a moment and said, to cooperate with me? There is a key point in this war. The shopkeeper nodded. It is also the closest coordinate that can allow you to successfully descend in this era. After all, what you are doing now is something that even the so-called gods can't do. Moreover, even if you succeed, even I, without the cooperation of another, can't do it. Luoqiu shook his head. You are richer than me. I am constantly evaporating my time, and I will soon reach my limit. The shopkeeper said, in theory, I am not much more powerful than you. Everything is based on this much. You see, the capacity of this cup is fixed. I have 2 liters of water, and I can fill it up. You only have 1 liter of water, but you can also fill it up. The effect of what I do is the same as what you do. This is its base, its limit, and beyond this limit it is the same. We don't have any so-called enemies. Even if you have more water, you can only fill this cup. So, it doesn't matter whether I do business or not. Boss Luo asked curiously. In his own era, he could be almost omniscient at any time. But the one in front of him was an existence that had been the shopkeeper for much longer than him. In his era, he was also at the level of omniscience. In the system of the shopkeeper, there were no so-called enemies in the shopkeeper. The relationship between the previous and the next was at most a relationship of communication. It is always better to be richer than to be poor. The shopkeeper smiled casually. For example, when I want to enjoy myself, but I don't have enough time, it will be very awkward. Of course, the direction of my development is somewhat different from yours. Your material needs may be simpler than mine. Boss Luo shook his head. His material needs were not high. The shopkeeper said, I mean, I want to be a warrior, and you are like a mage. Our strength is equal, but a mage can do many things that a warrior can't. However, a warrior's body is stronger than a mage's, so it is safer. But the shopkeeper has an absolute defense mechanism. You see, an eternal indestructible body like me is quite awkward. Moreover, once I transfer out of the shopkeeper, all these will be stripped from me quickly. You still have time. You can change this direction, Luochu said directly. I like your suggestion, the shopkeeper smiled. It was a gratified smile, because this shows that you have a special ability to think for others. You are not even afraid that if I change my direction, it will lead to the disappearance of the current you, the disappearance of your era, and the disappearance of everything you have experienced in the future. After becoming the shopkeeper, you are almost omnipotent, but you don't mind that all these disappear. Tell me, how should I evaluate you? There are many things that I can't do, Boss Luo said faintly. For example, he couldn't have an era where he and his father existed at the same time. He couldn't even recover the emotions that were almost stripped away by the altar. This time, because of pride, he was angry once. The next time he encountered the same thing, he would not be angry anymore. If his emotions were a loophole, then every time it happened, it would be patched up by the altar, and the loophole would only become smaller and smaller. You have to understand that the things that you can't do is perhaps the price you have to pay for everything you have, the shopkeeper said. I don't know what kind of price I will pay in the future to hand over the shop to you, but I think the price is something that you can't bear. What price did you pay? Boss Luo suddenly asked. The shopkeeper shook his head and said, I don't know what price I paid. After inheriting it, this part has been erased. I have been searching for it, but until now I haven't gathered enough things that I need to pay. The altar is quite fair. You may only pay an insignificant memory, but you will always want to know. You will also have the desire to understand. Then, the desire will expand infinitely. This insignificant memory will become something that you can't even ask for. Because you have lost this memory, you don't know if this memory is really insignificant or if it is more important to you than your life. The information asymmetry for customers also applies to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper is the biggest and most stable customer of the shop. You should know this. So, you really don't want to consider changing your direction? Luochu suddenly asked. Shopkeeper said calmly, I've said it before. Regarding this meeting, after you leave, it will be erased. What I've said, what I've discussed with you, it will only be and never happened. Since it didn't happen, why do you make me feel like I've taken the wrong path? You are too calm, Boss Luo bitterly smiled. You are the same. The shopkeeper smiled and said, Even if I can calculate my future situation, I don't feel angry at all. This is our shared sorrow. But in fact, this sorrow doesn't exist. Luochu suddenly said, You can always maintain this state, and I can also maintain my state, standing outside the river of time, watching time flowing away. You said that we have no enemies at all. That's right. The shopkeeper smiled and said, If I had decided to do nothing now, you wouldn't have come. I can truly exist forever, watching countless civilizations being born and destroyed in an endless cycle. But in fact, you are still in front of me at this moment, which proves that I still did something. Do you know why this is happening? Boss Luo fell into deep thought. Without enemies, one could exist forever, standing at the top of all living beings and even the so-called God. It was truly transcending everything. It was a higher material dimension than countless subworlds. As long as one wanted to, one could exist forever. There was indeed no reason to seek death. Because, like you, I am also looking for one of the few pleasures. The shopkeeper thought for a while and said, I am thinking that if I sell the shop to you, it is probably because I want to pursue my last bit of pleasure. If I miss it, I will completely become the agent of the altar. I will no longer be myself. I exist, but at the same time, my existence has been denied. Obviously, even at this stage, when I think about this problem, I feel instinctively afraid. Look at me, my fingers are trembling slightly. Obviously, I am still afraid, but my expression and my eyes can't see it. But what if it is not pleasure? Luocio suddenly asked. Then, there is only one possibility. The shop owner thought for a moment and said, "You and I could be a future set up in the past by my predecessor, or even before that. Just as the subworlds have their own scripts under the control of the Araya system, we may also have our own script." The feeling of being controlled. Luocio lowered his head and pondered. "You see, I am just saying." The shopkeeper smiled evilly and said, "But you have fallen into deep thought and started to estimate the correctness of this matter based on the existing conditions. Shouldn't it be?" Boss Luo was stunned. "Why do you think it is necessary?" The shopkeeper said bluntly, "Why not another possibility? In fact, as shopkeepers, we never need to pay anything. Maybe the shopkeeper is the luckiest one chosen by the root of everything. You don't need to do anything. You can do anything. No one will punish you, and you will not be affected by the so-called karma. Everything should be under your control. You can destroy it, you can reorganize it, you can do whatever you want. You really don't need to pay anything. Are you really the luckiest one unreasonably?" This. Luocio couldn't help but open his mouth. The shopkeeper's words even impacted some of his existing ideas. The shopkeeper smiled and said, "Anything is possible. What you think shouldn't happen is actually happening in different places all the time. It is the same for those impossible and even miracles. Perhaps you've always felt as if something was manipulating you, but it's just an illusion. Perhaps you've always been battling with the air. Maybe he had always been fighting with the air. Was it possible? Perhaps it was possible, since anything could happen." Luocio couldn't help but become silent. The shopkeeper obviously had wisdom that surpassed his. This was a quantitative accumulation. It was understandable that the shopkeeper had a deep accumulation that Boss Luo didn't have. It was just that they didn't walk the same path. Then, why did the future me create this little bit of chaos in this space-time? Finally, Boss Luo asked one of the most important questions of this trip. The shopkeeper thought for a while and said, "Maybe, I just want you to understand that you don't need to do anything at all here. You see, compared to any of the Black Soul envoys in the shop, isn't it more convincing for me, the previous shop owner and the one who personally handed the shop over to you, to say all this?" Luocio had to admit this point. It was true. But was it really that simple? Perhaps it was really that simple. It was just that he was used to imagining that there were always unruly people who wanted to harm him or something like that. Yes and no. Hashtag 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 PS. As usual. Chapter 1647. Boss Luo smiled bitterly. Today, he not only had a headache. Of course, it could also be because the time was crazily evaporating, greatly suppressing his thinking. "I think I will still be troubled by this problem for a very long time." Shop owner said calmly, "You can continue to be troubled. You have enough time to be troubled by this problem. Maybe the longer you are troubled, the better it will be for you. Actually, you can still find something to do. When you officially become the executor, I'm afraid you won't feel any happiness anymore." Luocio frowned. "According to what you said, the future me shouldn't let me understand this from you." Shop owner leaned back again. His gaze was distant. "Maybe, in the distant future, the future you will find a way to solve all these problems. That's why you need to do this. Anything is possible, isn't it? Including you. You cooperated with the future me to create this time point for me to descend?" Boss Luo's eyes lit up. The shop owner shook his head and said, "In fact, I'm not cooperating. I'm just doing this passively. To put it bluntly, if you stand in front of me in the future, I might not be able to resist the urge to kill him. Because in the future, you will probably buy a request for me to cooperate passively in the distant future. My own will is obviously against cooperating, because to me, it's obviously not beneficial. Boss Luo's expression became strange. This shop owner was actually a little mischievous in his steadiness? Of course, it's also possible that I can't defeat the future you and will be pressed to the ground. Shop owner shrugged and said, after all, even the present me fell into the trap, right? Let me understand this, and then let me do all these in the future, let me become the future me, and then let all these go in a perfect cycle? Luo Qiu muttered, can time still go in a cycle like this? Why not? Shop owner asked curiously. I said before that we are in a higher dimension. Just like the two-dimensional plane you see, the relationship between triangles, A, B, and C are 3 points. In 2 dimensions, you can only go from A to B, then from B to C, or from A to C, then from C to B. But when we look at it in 3 dimensions, we can see the whole process at the same time. We know both the beginning and the end. Everything happens at the same time. The past, the present, and the future, a trinity. The key is whether you focus on the origin, the result, or all of it. But in fact, all of them are in your eyes. Boss Luo shook his head and asked abruptly, Eternal Kingdom? Shopkeeper remained silent and gave his answer, Eternal Kingdom is Eternal Kingdom, and we are us. As for the Eternal Kingdom, I'm still exploring. The altar has a high requirement for this kind of information. It gave me a hint that only the power of the Eternal Kingdom's royal family could eliminate the shop owner, but in fact, I've never come across such information. Why did Shopkeeper know less about Eternal Kingdom than Sherlock? I'm not perfect, Shopkeeper said abruptly. This is something I only understood later, but it doesn't matter because it won't affect me from doing what I want to do in my era. About me? Boss Luo asked. Shopkeeper shook his head and said, This is what I don't like. The time required to obtain information about you is almost infinite. It exceeds my storage capacity. I have to wonder if you have harvested all the subworlds of the Araya system, and I'll forget everything after this. But it doesn't matter. Since this is the arrangement of the altar, I can't go against it. What's more depressing is that I'll forget everything in the future. I won't even know if I'm depressed. Despite that, the shop owner was still calm. My time is almost up. Boss Luo shook his head. I think so too. Shopkeeper nodded and said, Otherwise, it's unfair to me. I'm also a shopkeeper, and I should be the luckiest one who can do whatever I want. What exactly did you experience after that made you lock yourself in the room? At this moment, the shop owner didn't look like what Yi described. Last question. Boss Luo stood up, and his figure gradually faded. The evaporation of time didn't allow him to stay any longer. Ask away. Shopkeeper nodded and said, Ask whatever you want after this. I won't let similar things happen again, so you only have this chance. If the past can't be changed, why is Nero in this era? Why was Lamia sent back by me? That proves that they existed in this era. Shopkeeper glared at Luocio and said, This is the triangle drawn by you in the future. Don't you understand? You can also draw it as long as you have enough time. Do you understand? This is Shopkeeper, the one who can control the river of time and the so-called fate at will, and he doesn't have to take any responsibility. No matter what you do, there is always a stupid system called Araya to take the blame and change all the variables for you. You can't resist. How is it? Are you satisfied? How can I give up this power in the future? I'm crazy. Get out. A roaring voice sounded in the study. Finally, the resentment and anger accumulated by Shopkeeper broke through the blockade of reason. Boss Luo smiled. At the last moment when he disappeared, he showed a smile. Because he knew that Shopkeeper at this time might still be his original self, Luocio disappeared as if this era had never come. Shop owner frowned and looked in front of him in confusion. Then, his frown deepened, and he couldn't help but mutter to himself, "Who is attacking me? Is it my future self? Or the next one in the future?" A sense of urgency suddenly appeared in the shop owner's heart. This sense of urgency even made him feel fear that he had never felt before. Then, should I also leave a way out for myself? Shopkeeper lowered his head and pondered. His thoughts almost reached the limit in an instant. Instantly, countless possibilities appeared in his mind. Shopkeeper suddenly knocked on the table. "Araya?" In the room, an emotionless girl with blue hair and blue eyes appeared out of thin air. "Root authority holder. Scanning and backing up the subworld number 003 and related myth." Shopkeeper pointed with his finger. "I have an independent copy of the mirror world. It will be completely independent from your entire system and not belong to your perfect world cultivation plan. Start data transmission immediately." "Understood." The girl with blue hair and blue eyes disappeared. The shop owner quickly stood up and walked toward the altar in the depths of the shop. Facing the altar spewing out black mist, Shopkeeper was silent for a long time. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, "I want a tributary that is completely independent from the long river of time. And shield it. No matter who inherits the shop in the future, as long as the time doesn't exceed mine, they won't be able to discover its existence." The altar didn't respond. After a long while, there was a slight vibration. After a long time, Shopkeeper slowly walked out of the room where the altar was. He returned to the study. At this time, Miss Eleanor was waiting for him with a puzzled expression. The shopkeeper glanced at the servant girl and said coldly, "I'll also set up more critical gates. I'll send all the subworlds that have been marked to the critical gates to create as many black soul envoys as possible. I need more sacrifices." "Master?" Miss Eleanor was shocked. "Shopkeeper's time is almost at the bottom? Clearly, there is still a lot of time. Don't ask. If you ask again, I'll kill myself." Shopkeeper waved his hand, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. "Let the Greek kingdom of God die faster. I need the souls of those gods." "I got it." Miss Eleanor nodded in awe and then disappeared from this place hidden in the chaos. Shopkeeper returned to the study alone. He leaned back on the chair and fell into deep thought. Why didn't the urgency in my heart lessen? Instead, it's getting more and more irritating. Do I really have to make a trip in the future? Do you allow me to do this? Origin? Answer me. In the room, it was quiet. But Shopkeeper's expression gradually became rich. He had gotten the answer. Saying, yes. In the sanctuary, dawn was about to arrive. The inheritance ceremony of the heavenly crane constellation St. Cloth was about to begin. Everyone was busy for this ceremony. The inheritance of the silver St. Cloth could be carried out by the 12 gold lords. There was no need for such a grand ceremony. But this time, the goddess had descended and sent down an oracle. She would personally carry out this ceremony, which was why it was so grand. When Suya left the Acropolis where the goddess temple was located, she didn't alarm anyone. She just left with a destination. As for the direction of this destination, it was given to her by the Gold Lord of the Scorpio Temple. Become an underworld gladiator. Suya muttered to herself, but her footsteps were already far away. I will become an underworld gladiator stronger than a Gold Lord. Lamias later woke up in a sanatorium in the sanctuary. She could only find out what happened in the ice field from the guards. After finding out that the person who succeeded in inheriting the heavenly crane constellation St. Cloth was an unbelievably strong female warrior named Shaji, Lamias's expression became extremely strange. Her name was Shaji? Could it be that her surname was Ching Fu? Ching Fu Shaji? Haha. But this gave Lamias a feeling of absurdity. She didn't know if the name Shaji was a coincidence, but when the female warrior named Shaji appeared in front of her, she had a strong feeling in her heart. It made Lamia's think that she was the person she was looking for. But that feeling disappeared later, which made Lamia's confused. Did she find her or not? Maybe she should go and confirm. The new silver heavenly crane constellation must be in the sanctuary now, and waiting for the inheritance ceremony at dawn. There were no guards in the sanatorium, so no one stopped Lamia's from leaving. They were all busy with the inheritance ceremony, which made it convenient for Lamia's. On the street, people came and went everywhere. Some were in a hurry, some were discussing. Basically, they were all about the new silver heavenly crane constellation. Lamia's wasn't too interested in this. She just wanted to know where the new silver heavenly crane constellation was. This is, unknowingly, Lamia's came in front of a familiar building again. It was in this building that she awakened the power seed and had a wonderful encounter with the Gold Lord of the Virgo constellation. Coming back to the old place. Actually, it was only 1 or 2 days, but Lamia's felt like it was a lifetime ago. She subconsciously walked into the building. Those soldiers who were still guarding the body of the previous silver heavenly crane constellation, Lord Moy, recognized Lamia's at this time. "It's you again? Can I go in and see?" Lamia's asked subconsciously. "You? Go in." The soldier thought for a while and nodded. "Lord Musha is also inside, you better be quiet." Lord Musha said, "If you come, you can go in." Musha? Why would he be here at this time, as the chief of the Gold Lord? He should be in the goddess temple, accompanying the goddess. After all, the inheritance ceremony was about to be held. Lamia's walked into the depths of the building with doubts. She saw Musha in white again. Musha was sitting cross-legged in front of Moy's body at this time. Knowing that Lamia's came, Musha opened his eyes. Looking at the confused Lamia's, Musha suddenly said, "Do you know why I helped you?" Lamia shook her head, indicating that she didn't know. Musha pointed to the body on the stone bed at this time and said indifferently, "Because she, Moy, my sister." Lamia's couldn't help but open her mouth, but Musha stood up at this time, walked to the body of his sister, and lifted the mask that covered the female silver face. "This is me." Lamia's only felt that her mind was blank at this time, looking at the body lying quietly on the stone bed. It was as if she saw herself. That was a girl who looked like her. Perhaps it was her who looked like her. Was this the reason why she could come back to this era? "I can feel that you are the reincarnation of Moy, your souls are the same. This seems very ridiculous, after all, you look older than Moy, but it did happen in front of me." Musha said at this time, "You are not from this era, right?" Lamia's opened her mouth, but no words came out. Musha, the strongest person under the gods. ######. Chapter 1648. In the empty room where the former Silver Maya's body was placed, Lamia's faced Musha and suddenly had a feeling of panic. The other party had pointed out her background in a single breath. "If you were sure that a person came from the future, what would you do first?" Lamia's couldn't think of it. Perhaps, if it was her, what she wanted to know most was about the future, especially everything about her future. Then what about Musha? After knowing this, how would he treat her? Lamia's couldn't help but look at the girl who looked almost the same as her on the stone bed. As Musha said, this girl seemed to be younger than her, 17 or 18 years old. She was younger than the bronze satyr she had met in the Pegasus camp before. The Maya lying on the stone bed was Musha's sister. Obviously, she wasn't. The same soul, reincarnation of the soul? Maya, could it be her previous life in this era? Because of this, she could return to this era through the ability of the Manor Master Luaccio? At this moment, Lamia's mind was in a mess. She couldn't understand everything in front of her. "Your silence, can I take it as your acquiescence?" Musha suddenly said, "Actually, I'm just guessing, a big guess." "Then, please tell me, which era did you come from?" Lamia's looked up and hesitated. She suddenly thought of a series of chain reactions. It was reasonable to say that the past couldn't be changed. But since she came to the past era, her words and actions had already affected the future? You don't dare to say it, right? Mu Sha said indifferently. You're afraid that if you say it, the future will change, right? This man, could it be that he had the ability to see through the other's mind? Lamia's was shocked at this time. When she looked at Mu Sha again, there was a real reverence. Perhaps the future won't change because of this. Mu Sha shook his head at this time, because, since you can appear here, it means that no matter what you do here, it has no effect on you who has already come to this era. Only when things are set and unchanged will your existence appear, your arrival. In fact, in your era, before your arrival, everything that happened in my era had already happened, and you were involved. Are you saying that no matter what I do here, I can't change the future? Lamia's was stunned. She frowned and said, What I don't dare to do from now on is actually something that has already been done? You can understand it this way. Mu Sha nodded. Of course, at least for me, that's what I think. Every era has its limit. Just like how primitive people are unable to understand the arithmetic of the present. For me, the mainstream of thought in this era and the limits of knowledge are the barriers that limit me. I can only understand this much. That was already monstrous, all right? Lamia's couldn't help but lament in her heart. Indeed, powerful people and geniuses were the same no matter what era they were in. Lamia's couldn't help but think that if Mu Sha had been born in the future era of information explosion, his understanding of time and space would have been even more incredible. However, going back to the past doesn't mean that you can change the future. After going back, you might just repeat everything that has already happened. Lamia's lowered her head. I'm here because I was here before. Any futile attempt to change the past is just a fantasy. No, I'm more inclined to believe that it's not that you can't change anything, but that when you can change something, you will stop before you change it. Mu Sha's eyes suddenly lit up. At this moment, Lamia seemed to see the infinite wisdom contained in this man's eyes. It was as bright as the stars. I don't understand. At this time, Mu Sha directly sat down, but after sitting down, his body floated into the air at the same time. His eyes gradually became deep. You will disappear. When you want to do something, to change the past, it is the same as touching the foundation of your future. Because you have touched the foundation that can change your future existence, you will disappear. I think that when you are about to make a change, you will have this feeling. It will urge you to stop, let you know what you should do and what you shouldn't do. This is the arrangement of fate. Lamia's opened her mouth. She couldn't help but be shocked by Mu Sha's point of view. If, as Mu Sha mentioned, there were people in this world other than her who could return to the past, they clearly had the ability to change something, but when the change came, they would receive a revelation and know that they would disappear in the future, they would stop. They would definitely stop. From Lamia's point of view, she wasn't so great that she would never exist in order to change something in the future. That's not right. Lamia's was struck by an idea. She looked at Mu Sha and gritted her teeth. According to what you said, if I did something that changed the future and touched the foundation of my existence in the future, and I disappeared in the future, or even never appeared, how could I go back to the past and make these changes? If I don't exist in the future, the matter of me returning to the past also doesn't exist. The future won't change, right? Isn't this already changed? Mu Sha said indifferently. It's just that you don't exist anymore, so you don't know how your future will change. This is already a change. I don't exist, already changed, I don't exist, already changed. But I don't know because I don't exist anymore. I don't exist anymore, as if falling into a dead end. Lamia's vaguely grasped something, but she couldn't break through the fog in front of her. Mu Sha was just in front of her, floating and sitting cross-legged like a holy god, deep and needed to be respected. She was scared and subconsciously stepped back. Everything that happened in this empty room, for the silver warrior Maya, who might be her previous life, everything seemed so illusory. Finally, she stepped back to the exit of the empty room. She turned around and wanted to leave, but she stopped again. She suddenly turned around and stared at Mu Sha. She took a deep breath and said, Don't you want to know what will happen in the future? Mu Sha said indifferently, Since you can return to this era, since you still exist now, it means that no matter what I know from you, I can't change anything about the future. Whether I know or not, the result is the same. I will choose not to know. Why? At least, there is still hope for the unknown in my heart. Mu Sha shook her head, her body slowly descended, and said faintly, Because I am not a god, just a mortal. Lamias gritted her teeth and said quickly, In the future, there is almost no record of this era. At least in the human world, they generally don't know about the existence of gods. Even if there is an inhuman and supernatural power, it is still very rare. So, the future may be an era where the gods are not in. As for the direction of this war of gods, I also don't know, but you can. She was about to say something, but Mu Sha suddenly shook her head. At the same time, Lamias only felt an unprecedented fear spread throughout her body. She looked at her hands in horror, and her hands gradually faded away. What she had said was already the foundation of what she could establish in the future. Lamias was frightened, her lips instinctively closed. Her wildly beating heart and nerves eroded by fear were frantically stopping her from saying what she was about to say. I can't say any more. Lamias's voice could not help but tremble. Mu Sha was deep in thought and muttered, Regarding this, I was only guessing. But from the looks of it, at least this guess is correct. As expected, there is no way to change the future. Sorry, I can't help you. Lamias took a deep breath. I don't even know the real reason why I came here. Lamias left, and Mu Sha did not ask her to stay. He stayed alone in the empty room, surrounded by flowers, silently gazing at his sister's body. He walked up, reached out his hand, and stroked the cheek that was still soft even though it had lost its vitality. He softly said, At least, I know that in the future, you will still exist. At the last moment before dawn, the gold of Virgo constellation, Master Mu Sha left. When he left, he set a fire, and at the moment of dawn, the body of the former silver fighter, Grus constellation's Maya, was also cremated. In the sacred Saint Galaxy's goddess temple, at the same time, the bell rang. The new Grus constellation's succession ceremony was about to begin. The girl was sitting on a platform at the top of the sacred Saint Galaxy's goddess temple. Her legs were kicking casually, and her hands were holding a basin full of food. At this moment, the young girl was eating in big mouthfuls while looking at the busy figures below. Master Shaji. So you are here. The ceremony is about to begin. Please change your clothes immediately. Behind the girl, several maids were anxiously walking over. Originally, they were going to bathe and change clothes for the new silver fighter, Master Shaji, but when they were bathing, a few pure girls from the temple were blushing and their legs were weak. When they came back to their senses, Master Shaji was already gone. The frightened girls from the temple instantly woke up from some kind of aftertaste of happiness, and hurriedly looked around. I am thinking about a very serious problem. The girl, Shaji, Nero said with a deep expression at this time. Master Shaji? The girls from the temple were startled. Nero said seriously, How can I go back? The girls from the temple naturally didn't know what the new silver fighter of Grus constellation was talking about, but the ceremony was about to begin, and this was the descent of the goddess. She would personally host the ceremony, so they couldn't be careless. Thus, the girls instantly mustered up their courage, walked to the side of Master Shaji, and directly lifted her up and dragged her back to the temple. Nero didn't resist. She reminded them that it was a long time ago that she was dragged like this. However, at that time, she was still a member of the Michael Club. In order to become a divine general, she received inhuman training. She would often be beaten half to death, and then be dragged away by others to clean up the mess. If she could be saved, then she would wake up in the infirmary. If she couldn't be saved, then she would either be incinerated or turned into fresh meat for the new species, Prometheus, developed by the club. I don't like being dragged, really, Nero suddenly said. Master Shaji, don't make trouble. Quickly change your clothes. Otherwise, the Lord Officiant will blame us. The girl said anxiously. Really, I will kill you? The girls screamed one after another. They only felt a terrifying panic spread throughout their body. Their strength had been sucked out, and they completely collapsed on the ground. Their bodies were still trembling. Nero slowly stood up, picked up a piece of beeswax from the basin she was holding and chewed it. Also, when I eat, I don't like to be disturbed. Remember? Yes, yes. The girls from the temple nodded in horror. Then, the new silver fighter's face appeared as bright as the sun. Just kidding, I am the kindest person in the world. Others call me Holy Shaji. The girls from the temple were still trembling. At this time, a figure slowly walked over, and the girls from the temple knelt down in reverence. The one who came was Master Gold of the Scorpio Temple. You all can leave, she will go back to change her clothes later. Master Gold of the Scorpio Temple said expressionlessly at this time. Not only did the girls disobey, but they also bowed their heads and left quickly. The Gold of the Scorpio Temple. Prince Pu Lin walked in front of Nero and said with a frown, The ceremony is about to begin. You will meet Her Highness the Goddess. So, are you not going to say anything to me? Nero blinked and said, I won't tell you that you can successfully conquer my secret book. Prince Pu Lin only pretended that he didn't hear her and said indifferently, What's your origin? In this war between the gods, which side do you belong to? Is this very important? Nero smiled and said, I won't stop what you want to do, and I will even cooperate with you. Isn't that good? Prince Pulin was silent for a while, then suddenly threw a black dagger at Nero, and the dagger was directly inserted at Nero's feet. Prince Pulin said in a low voice, If you plan to help me, then stab this dagger into the goddess' chest when she personally baptizes you. Nero opened her eyes wide and looked at the dagger on the floor. She looked at Prince Pulin in surprise and said, I didn't expect that you actually. Didn't you say that no matter what I do you will cooperate with me? Prince Pulin said indifferently. Nero directly pulled out the dagger and then threw it to the ground. You really don't know how to play. What's so fun about stabbing the goddess to death with a dagger? Of course, you will stab with something else. In any case, I'm proficient in 36 plots, 72 postures, and 108 positions. You're looking down on my professional skills. You are looking down on me. I am angry. I hope you will appear in the ceremony later. After that, Prince Pulin, the young master of the underworld, turned and left.